Hello. Good evening. And hopefully I'm not blowing your eardrums out because my gains are a little off. Hopefully I'm not blowing out your eardrums. I still can't believe that Jimmy was able to pull that off. Like, my throat would just be a bubbling, bleeding mass of flesh doing that.
I could tell you
and I used to do that in my 20s.
Don't want it with us. I could tell you one time that we'll fuck you up. I could tell you
I have a funny story about this intro.
Go grab your guns.
And another one coming.
This day belongs to us.
For those of you who don't know, this is Jimmy James of the New Watch Podcast, who very graciously provided this intro, which is why the War Room has a new musical interlude, which we've used for a couple of weeks now, truth be told. But I love it. And what's not to like, right? And I'm grateful that you guys let me play the whole thing, but I do understand it's a bit long. It's so good. It's that basically describes how I feel this week too. So anyway, good evening, hello, and welcome to the War Room. This is day 135 of Russia's illegal incursion into the Ukraine. And as you can see, today I have provided you a map of said battlefield in Ukraine with commentary, sort of. It's not to be insulting, it's just the truth. So anyway, let me get you guys caught up. It's been a week since we all saw each other last. I guess the cat's out of the bag. I mean, there was something that I had done on the channel a few days ago. So if those of you who subscribe to me also watch Night Strike's show, you may have noticed that there was a music video on my channel the other day. And I have to admit, I had to brush off some old skills that I haven't used since I was in my 20s. And I didn't get to use my DJ name since I was in my 20s. So it was really fun to put it all together. And if you want, I could sort of give you just a teaser of what you can expect to hear. But it goes a little something like this. I don't know if I have it in here or not, actually. I don't think I do. Damn. Sorry. I guess I don't have it in here. Anyway, you'll have to wait till Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, and you'll get to see the debut of Night Strike's new video intro. Because I took it upon myself after having listened to Jimmy's New Watch Podcast opening song, and I really like it. And then I asked him to do one for me, and he very graciously did it. And I started to think, this guy's got a real talent for this. So then last Tuesday when I was on Hit or Miss, I just offhandedly said, Mike, we really ought to have Jimmy make you one too. And he was like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And we just kind of said it under our breath while we were just having the normal conversation. And then out of the blue, by the time I got off of work, there was a link waiting for me, and Jimmy had written the lyrics and recorded the audio track. And his original was about as long as mine, about 220. But I thought, most of the guys who do their shows, like for instance, I'll use Mike and I'll use Night Strike and I'll use like Rick's Life as I See It as an example. It gets a little weird after doing this year after year to start every show with, All right, it looks like we're live. It's like, no, 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 no. We've been doing this long enough to where it needs to be more refined and more polished and more serious because we're all grown-ups and we need to take this a little more seriously, especially if we're going to give you the information. In my show, the news of a war, like I don't the music is loud, yes, it's brash, yes, but it's also meant to convey how serious the situation is because Ukraine is chaos right now. And that's what that kind of music is. It's chaos. It's energetic chaos. So, the one thing I really admire about Jimmy is he takes your show content into account when he decides what background music he's going to use and what lyrics he uses, which that's a rare talent, especially to be able to do that on such short notice. So when I got home, uh, I told Mike, I was like, what I ought to do is let me take that original clip and let me cut it down into what I would call like a radio edit, and then that way you can use it as a 1 minute clip intro. So I edited it down in 40 minutes, and then the next thing I knew, right before I uploaded it, I thought, you know what I ought to do? I ought to turn this into a music video. So I spent the next 3.5 hours doing that. And then I uploaded it, and then the thing you saw on the channel last Wednesday, I think it was, that was the finished product. And yes, there are certain things in it that were deliberately made the way they were. So like, for instance, the video is supposed to be choppy frames on purpose. The audio distortion at the end of the fade out of the track is very, very on purpose because I drew my inspiration for those things because the intro that Jimmy chose, it sort of reminded me of like Linkin Park's Paper Cut and like an Evanescence track. So it was like I had that in my mind while I was listening to it, but then the little bit at the very end of that track reminded me of very old school Filter for those of you who are into alternative and rock. So I wanted that the way it is. It is set up exactly the way I wanted it. I had a audio and visual vision for that. And then I sent it to Jimmy and he lost it. He was like, "Yes!" And I sent it to Night Strike. He was like, "Hell yes!" So that's what you guys are going to get to see Tuesday. I was going to tease it this afternoon for this show, but then I thought, this is for Night Strike and it has to be unique to his show, and I wanted it for him to use it first on air, that is. So anyway, let me get all that out of the way. The week in review, personally, for me, it was just a lot of work and a whole lot of heat. I think the average temperature for me this week was 109. It was crazy. It was 112 today on the way home from work. It was just insane. And on top of that, my puppies all have their eyes open now, so now they're starting to walk around, which is starting to become stressful because now I have to sort of build barriers. But they're all healthy, which is great. Um, what else? I ordered the rest of the parts for my Polymer 80 builds because I can. I guess that's a good way to put it. And I think that's it, really. I don't have a whole lot going on. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff on the way, but there's going to be a pretty good This Old Gat video or like a Pwnery Tinkers type video for the Polymer 80s. So you're going to have to wait for that one. People who join my server, by the way, the link's in the description. We have this Lobby for Working Stiffs thing where we chat every day, all day. So if that is something that's of interest to you, you can hear some of the ramblings of what we're planning on doing for our channels anyway, in the form of how we're going to film things or what we're bouncing ideas off of each other. It's an eclectic pile of hot garbage. Like, we talk about everything and anything. And if you are of weak constitution, or if you take offense, or you feel like butthurt by the fact that sometimes we don't address you because we're in the middle of doing our jobs, so there's a lot of background noise, and then you get upset and you leave. Sorry, like, I can't help you. We have a job to do. That's why it's called Lobby for Working Stiffs. And sometimes the job supersedes the conversation. Anyway, let me see. I got all that out of the way. Let me go ahead and start pulling in my panelists, and then we'll talk about the stories of the day. One thing I can tell you is the scroller is updated, and there's a particular thing in it that I want to share with you guys as a comment today. But let me just drag in my co-hosts. So I have, you probably see him as Scottish Naya, but this is Scott P79. So good evening to you.
Evening.
And this is Mikhail Nightstrikesky, also known as Nightstrike, with a Y. Even though it's not the Y in his... No, it is. Never mind. And I also got the Polish Hammer tonight, which is Warsaw Patriot, who is currently muted, but he'll probably chime in as soon as he realizes we're on air. So that's cool.
No, I
All
just
right.
don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's cool. Thanks. So yeah.
Sean,
Yes?
it's not the why you need, but it's the why you deserve.
Oh, Jesus. So anyway, one of the things that I've been talking to the Discord team is to get our avatar sizes larger. Because when I do this panel view here, you see just little dots. Which on full screen on YouTube is probably fine. But I was like, what the hell? You got all this space, make the icons bigger. So hopefully in the next update that'll happen.
Wait. They're doing another update again?
They do updates all the time.
Yeah, they do.
When's the next update, if you don't mind me asking?
Who knows?
I do the beta testing and like the think tanking. I don't know when they actually go live. I can't tell you because even I don't know. But anyway, the scroller is updated for today, to day 135. And the one thing that I really wanted to point out, which is freaking amazing, was I do this week to week now. So you can see the numbers from last week's episode and this week's episode, and you're going to see a couple of things that are barely moving. Like, for instance, 15 ships have been sunk last week. It is still 15 this week because there's not a lot of naval activity going on. There's not a lot of aircraft being shot down because the Russians are scared shitless of flying over Ukraine right now because of anti-aircraft missiles and man-pads and things like that. But the statistic that blew my mind was the tank loss figures. Just today, between yesterday to today, 35 tanks were knocked out. In a single day. The jump from last week to this week was only like 40-something.
35 Russian tanks?
In a single day. Yesterday to today. 35. Bam. Gone.
So, would this include the Turkish Bayraktar drones, the javelins, howitzers?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because the last time this kind of thing happened, they had set up an ambush where there was a column of Russian tanks coming in. They were like 72s and T-72s and T-90s and T-92s. They were all in a column, and they set up the javelins where they aimed at the front tank and the two in the rear and created a kill box in the middle.
Oh my goodness.
It was like a turkey shoot. It was the craziest thing you ever saw on video. It was all over.
You don't piss off Ukrainian special forces.
Yeah, especially
No.
ones who know what they're doing with those javelins.
Last time I checked, Sean, correct me, is that SOF?
Where?
No, the Ukrainian Special Forces.
I think
I
so.
believe that's SOF.
I think so. That column kill, the one I'm talking about where they knocked out the front and the two in the rear, that happened just outside of Kyiv, just before the Russian retreat. It was glorious. That was back on like day 40 something.
Yeah, that was when you saw the ones in the middle try and go off to the left.
Yeah, and they had
And they
nowhere
still
to
got
go.
decimated.
Yep. It was incredible. You know that saying that the Army gets the Army gets the new stuff, but the Marines, or Army gets the weapons, but the Marines make it legendary?
Yep.
Yeah, we made javelins, and the Ukrainians just made them legendary with that. Column kills.
I'd
Like,
agree
that
with
is
that.
textbook column kill. Awesome. So yeah, 35 tanks in a single day. That's just bravo. Bravo. Really.
Hey, I know it's been a while, but any update from the Belarusian military that sided with the Ukrainians?
No, but I do have stories about Belarus, which is why I have that caption in the picture there.
Because I know half Belarus's military just helped out the Ukrainians a while back.
Yes. So, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, if you can't, I know you guys probably can't see it if you're not watching the YouTube side from here, but I left these little comments on the war map today. So it says Donbass, still Ukraine, but held by traitors. Crimea, stolen by Russia 2014. Moldova, quote, look, we're poor, just leave us the fuck alone. And then Belarus, bitches are in for a surprise. There's a reason for that, and I will elaborate on that as we go through the stories today, because I have, I think, 2 stories out of Belarus.
Does that mean they may have a civil war?
It's
It might.
possible. It's possible, but right now the ruling party is very in control.
Oh.
The opposition leader's in exile. And female. Real female. I'm not a biologist, but I can tell.
She's beautiful, by the way.
She's not bad looking. Like,
No, she's not.
wouldn't kick her out of bed unless I knew she was good on the floor.
Jesus.
Well, now we're not, now that we're demonetized. I learned about the rules of demonetization, by the way. And I'm gonna have to. I honestly have to say, when I hit 1,000 subs and I can try to apply for monetization,
The
I'm
rules are
probably
keep
gonna cut the profanity out of my broadcast.
Or they're gonna probably say no.
Yeah, they'll just tell me no. They'll just be like, "No, everything you do we hate." I'm like, "I play video games." And they're like, "Okay, everything but that we hate." Whatever.
I mean, I'm monetized. Ish.
Yeah.
I mean,
So anyway, no, I was
just
watching a lot of Grim Reaper's videos, and he started telling the audience, "Oh, I guess we're not going to get monetized for this one," and so I started paying attention to why, and it was just supposedly the algorithm picks up profanities in the first minute and the last minute, and sometimes in the middle you can squeak a few out and get away with it, but they're tightening that up, so it's like. My intro to the war room would demonetize me because of the lyrics. Thanks, Jimmy.
thanks, Jimmy.
It's okay. Actually, the one for yours, the one that's coming up for yours, no profanity.
Really?
Yeah, it's great.
I don't believe that at all.
It's great. And
It's
and the quote copyright claim thing that I got, it's open. Like it's not a strike or anything. It's just because I used a certain picture. Because it's owned by a certain group, and they don't care. They're like, no, use it. I was like,
No,
cool.
you're not getting it. I'm saying it's Jimmy. How did that work?
You know what? No idea. I know what you're saying now, but I no idea. How did that happen?
No idea.
He said he did it while he was really drunk.
He did a good job. He needs to drink more.
Well, see, the problem is that means he's the exact opposite of me. Because when I drink, it turns into a let me tell you what's wrong with you session.
Well,
with incredible levels of vulgarity.
Sean, I hate to tell you this, but you do that when you're not drunk, too.
Yeah, but just the savagery is... I cranked
It's
it
about
to
the
11
same.
and snapped the knob off.
It's about the same.
Nah. Besides, I've been teetotaling for like, what, 20 days so far? Don't ask me why. I can't even tell you why. All right. So anyway, we have to work on Warsaw's game. We'll do that later.
What did you say?
We're not going to talk about that.
What are you talking about?
You tend to backfeed when you're not muted. Like I can hear myself in your thing.
There you go. Speak now.
Meh. There you go.
Meh.
That's better.
That's better. Ish.
Like your mic's picking up the speaker, I guess, slightly. I don't know. Just unmute when you have things to add. That it'll be fine.
Oh, that's why. I got the cover on the speaker.
Ah. Well, just mute in the meantime, and then when you have something to jump in, I can deal with it in between. Let's see. The Finest of Apes is asking, what about the reports of massive air asset buildup in Slovakia? Slovakia?
That's one I haven't heard of.
That's one I haven't heard of.
Mike, look into that.
Actually, I might know what that is. Actually,
Oh,
Sean.
go on then.
Hold on. I'll look it up right now.
Slovakia, believe it or not, I actually have heard that name. That's actually from Ace Combat 6 in the video game series.
So he's just teasing.
Yeah.
Slovakia.
Damn it, ape! I fell for it. Well done, sir.
Yeah, there is no Federal Republic of Slovakia.
Fine. What's the name of that fake country in the new Top Gun movie?
Russia?
No. think it's called like Dumbfuckistan or something.
Iran.
No, I don't know. No, in the new Top Gear movie, the belligerent nation is a made up one because they don't want to offend anybody because people are soft. All right, so
Oh,
let's
like
go ahead and get into the stories because we do have a bunch of them, and I'd really like to get to bed before 5 a.m. for once.
It's not gonna happen.
Well, I think you and I talked about it this morning. I'm like, that one time that we did this show, it was 3 hours long. It's not that I didn't enjoy doing it, but I was so wiped out at the end of that. I was just like, I can't do it. You're going to hear me stumble when I'm reading the stories to you around the 1 hour and 50-minute mark because I get tired, you know? I mean, there's a reason why news broadcasters are only at the most an hour. And even that hour is interrupted by 21 minutes of commercials, so they get little breaks. We don't. Which means we're better than them. Yeah, I said it. We're better than you. Network TV. Yeah. Yeah. Imperial Fish Shake of Rage. Well done. The finest. Hey, you got me for a little while. Anyway. Oh, well, since we're going to talk about air asset buildups, I have taken an interest in DCS World because I had.
We were talking about last night.
Yes, and I had sat down and I had purchased, back in those days, I bought the Cytec X52, and I intended to buy the rudder sets and the switch sets and everything. So I got the throttles, the yokes, I have a couple of the switch sets, I still need to get the rudders, but then I was watching Grim Reaper's sponsored stuff, Wind Wings, which is actually Chinesium, but very high quality Chinesium, strangely enough. And I'm kind of thinking about redoing my hardware setup, but I'm going to give this another shake because somebody suggested I could put a tighter spring on the yoke, and it'll give me the throw that I'm looking for because it's a little too soft right now.
I feel like high quality and Chinesium shouldn't be in the same sense.
I know, right? But anyway, so I ended up getting, what is it? Lockheed Martin's Prepare 3D. And it's like $1,000 software suite. It's not cheap.
It's not.
And it's really good because what they did was they took the original Flight Simulator X engine and upgraded it because for their use, and then they made it public. So it's like everything from FSX transfers over, which is great. Except some of the models don't because some of the models are really old, and then you have to use something to convert them, which I'm still learning how to do. But regardless, I got that, and then I went and got the new Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 version, which is very, very visually pretty. Like, they got the terrain and the weather and everything gorgeous. But the plane models are sort of sparse, few and far between.
Right.
And then watching people play DCS World, like one night I was sitting there watching a video and they were flying the de Havilland Mosquito at night. And I was just like, oh, I want to fly the Mosquito. So then I thought, you know what? Screw it. I can get DCS World because it's free, right? Right? So you know where I'm going with this.
No, you can't.
I used to play this game growing up called Rose Online. It was a free MMORPG.
Oh, you played that one too, huh?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I actually helped manage a couple of private servers, one of which is still running today.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you about it later.
I'll need that.
Hey, Sean.
What? I'm telling a story.
Sorry.
What?
No, I'm just letting you know. I gotta be, take care of something real quick. I'll be right back. All right.
Sure.
All right.
It's fine. So there was features in that game which was like a pay window, kind of item mauling type thing, but it was like in its infancy stage. And they didn't do it very well, and the game sort of collapsed because World of Warcraft came out around the same time and sort of crushed it. So after that came, a lot of people were playing MapleStory, which I know it's very cartoony and everyone's got like Down syndrome size heads or whatever. But the point is they were getting really good at item mauling. Everything you bought in that game was just cosmetic though, so it like didn't give you an advantage or a disadvantage or anything. And then, fast forward a little while, and then Wargaming came out with World of Tanks, and they had pay windows to level up faster or to gain like unique vehicles that may give you earning bonuses, but not level you up as fast. It gives you like a combat disadvantage. So that way it kept it fair. And they were getting pretty good at this item mauling thing. To the tune that I've spent $10,000 with that company over the course of 10 years, essentially. Buying premium accounts and, premium ships and tanks and airplanes. I played all their games. I beta tested half their games. But yeah, I spent about 10 grand with that company. And I thought, well, that was spread out over 10 years, right? So then I looked at DCS World and I'm like, how many planes come with that game when you first get it? And then, how are these Grim Reapers guys playing with all these different aircraft? They must be DLCs. Combat missions and planes and whatever. So then I jumped over to the DLC channel, and I was just like, I scrolled down the list. I didn't even look at the prices. I was just like, man, this is a huge list. And at the very bottom it said, add all to cart. And I thought, yeah, okay. Let's see how much all of it would cost. $3,308. That game's not free. So, yeah, I started buying DLCs. Very slowly, though. Like, it's going to take me a while to get all of them. Because I'm not doing it all at once. I think I'm going to do it with... I think I'm going to do all the old warplanes first. The old ones. Because those are the ones I sort of gravitate towards. I have more fun with those. George, on the other hand, my coworker, he would go straight to, like, the Ace Combat type planes. All the modern ones. He'd be playing, like, fullbacks and flankers and everything. Like, all of them. That's his thing. Could you wear your sunglasses at night while playing Doge? No. No. Actually, the mission I saw with the Mosquito that really blew my mind was they were trying to do the Dam Busters raid of some sort, where it was a night mission. And the thing was, the mission actually required Lancasters, but the Lancaster's not added into DCS World yet. So the closest thing they can come up with was the Mosquito. And they set it up with restrictions. The mission programming of that game is insane. Like, you can do every single tune detail, including if you fly too high, you instantly die. If you fly and veer off 5 miles outside of this path, you automatically die. And then you could set up all the anti-aircraft emplacements and all the spotlights and everything like that. And it's just chaotic. And he set this up with spotlights, and the spotlights hit the plane and blinded him. Like, everything was just whitewashed, and then he crashed into a tree. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. Pain in the ass, but that's cool anyway, right? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the item mauling thing because my eyes popped out of my head when I saw $3,308. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm going to be building up that game very slowly. Very slowly. But I will have it all eventually, and then maybe I'll start doing some videos on there and brushing up on my skills, I guess.
Now, aren't you glad somebody introduced you to the Grim Reapers?
I guess. I'm sure I would have found it eventually, but yeah, it's cool. It's just now it's going to make me spend a lot of money. Thanks, God. All right, so I've wasted 28 minutes of your time. Let's go ahead and get to the stories because we have a lot of them to cover. First story with this new weekly format, we're covering the week of. So we got up to day 128 last week. So we're going to start from Saturday, day 129, and work our way up to today. That way I can get you all caught up. The good news is I don't have 500 million stories this time. So I've only picked out, like, some of these only have one story per day. Some of them have, like, 3 stories for that one day. So we'll get through these pretty quickly. And then if my co-hosts here have any other stories that I didn't cover that they'd like to share and they want to screen share their source, I'll highlight them so that way you all viewers can see it in full screen. So you're not just hearing us tell you the story, you get to see the thing that we're presenting to you, like I do.
No, they need to hear you.
They need to hear and see it. So, like, for example, I have this picture. And it's a drone, yes, but it's a very specialized drone, as you're about to find out. So, Saturday, day 129. Russian President Vladimir Putin has waged economic terrorism in Ukraine by stocking the farmlands and Black Sea ports full of mines. An official working to demine Kyiv reported to the news, obviously. There's 20 plus years of mining work already in Ukraine, and for every day of war, there's an additional 30 days of mining work that'll be required. This came from. Hey, look, it's Jimmy. Let me drag him in here.
Oh shit!
There we go.
Uh-oh.
So now we have the man himself who created the theme music for tonight's show and for what you'll see on Tuesday.
Mhm.
So anyway, you're in. I had to drag you in manually, Jimmy. That's why you couldn't just hop in. Let me see. The story came from Cameron Chell. He's the CEO of a drone company called Dragonfly Incorporated. Um, Chell's been working with Ukraine's emergency management services to deploy drones to effectively detect buried mines left behind by Russian forces after they withdrew from areas surrounding Kyiv in late March, which was right after they got their shit pushed in a tank column. However, the drone expert said where Russian troops left the explosive devices says a lot about the war Putin is raging against its former Soviet neighbor. We were shown some fields that there just seemed to be no reason to bomb them. There wasn't even real action in that area, according to what we were told. This is what Chell's describing. The fact is, if you just go and inadvertently bomb hectares and hectares of land, it becomes unusable. It becomes unusable, unproductive land, and it would appear that it is some sort of economic terrorism, he added. The war in Ukraine's dragged on for more than 4 months. We're actually about to hit the 5th month. In April, Russian officials said Moscow's ambition in Ukraine was to gain full control over its eastern and southern regions, though Kremlin officials only made this announcement after first failing to take Kyiv following the first month's worth of fighting, that is. Officials on the ground have argued this war is more about gaining back former Soviet territory, and it's crippling Kyiv. Now, I just want to take a sidebar here for a second. Haven't I been saying that since the very first episode of The War Room, that this is nothing more than the dying wish of a decrepit old communist fool trying to redraw the map to look like the 1961 Cold War Europe?
I think we've all
Pretty
been
sure I've been saying that the entire time.
saying, we may not have been saying that particular thing about dying. You have.
I have. I've been saying
But
he
we-
was jerking off to a copy of a map from 1961, too.
We've been saying everything else.
Yeah. Anyway, Chell said Ukrainians remain steadfast in their determination to fend off Russia's offensive. There's a very pragmatic approach to, okay, what does this really mean over the next year? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, he said. I didn't come across anybody that had an expectation that this was going to be done by Christmas. Their morale is way more resilient, he added. The number of landmines Russian forces deployed across Ukraine remains unknown, but by mid-May, Ukrainian authorities had reported 80,000 mines and other explosive ordnance had already been found, recorded, and disabled. Ukraine is now by far the most mined country in the world. Hey, if I had anything to do with it, the Texas southern border would be the most mined thing in the world. Sorry, I should have said it sidebar. Dragonfly's drone technology cannot detect underwater mines yet, but its ability to find and record landmine locations is not only a safer method, but could speed up the demining process by up to 40%. Drone technology is also being looked into to help disable mines, though the expert said that the most effective way to removing the threat of underground explosives is still by training personnel and individually disabling the bombs. Let me tell you why that's bullshit. Because you know I have an opinion and I'm not afraid to share it. If you have a field like in this photo, and you suspect there are landmines, there's this wonderful little weapon that the Russians have been using called cluster munitions. And what you would do is you would use your own cluster munitions in a field after you warn the public that you're going to do it, and watch the field explode because you will detonate every mine in the ground. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, but you know what the problem with that is?
You tilled the dirt too if it's farmland, so that's great.
You know what the problem is, though, right?
Oh, what? Fire?
Cluster munitions have an obscenely high amount of unexploded round ordnance.
Ah, they don't all go off.
They
Yep.
don't all go boom.
Fair enough. Fine.
Fine.
Fan. Can we have a land-based version of the hedgehog depth charge? Because those all went off.
The Marines actually do have a breach clearing explosive charge.
Actually, you know
It
what?
shoots out like 200 feet from the vehicle.
I got a better idea. Why don't we just use a Mark 19 on a Chinook and just bloop, 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 bloop in the field and just watch them all blow up that way? Right? Well,
Yeah,
'cause
has a better.
I guess 40 mics and that number would probably be quite expensive.
Yeah.
We could just, I don't know, march out Russian prisoners and just be like, walk that way or get shot in the back. Now, you might think that's cruel. You might think I'm being very mean. But do you remember there was a time where a Russian warship pointed its guns at a Ukrainian fishing vessel and said, "You sail in that direction right there because we know there's mines out there." And sure as shit, it hit the mines, it killed a sailor and sunk the boat. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Just saying. And then there's that weapon flail thing, right? Like, how come they're just not using that? You can cover quite a bit of ground with one of those, right? It's like a tank in reverse, and it's got that big chain flail at the end of it, and you just beat the hell out of the ground. You're tilling the ground, so it's like the farmers will be happy. Demo
Oh,
chains. Yeah, see?
I thought you were talking about like a gun that shot these things out. That would be phenomenal.
No. So my original idea is cluster munitions, but Scott was saying that they don't all go off, so that could be an issue. Then I thought, well, why don't we just use Chinooks? Because Chinooks have Mark 19s on either side of it, on its flanks, and they can just bloop, 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 like a machine gun, right? And drop little
Yeah.
40 millimeter grenades in a pattern, and when those blow up, the shock wave of that explosion would set off the mines.
Now,
But
what are the shotgun shells called that are two slugs held together by fucking chicken wire or whatever? Excuse my language.
There's a name for that.
Well, screw the name. Imagine that
Yeah.
on a 40 millimeter level. What you're talking about, but the munitions are able to. Every single shot is that. Every single round is one of those.
They must be expensive. Otherwise, probably somebody would have thought of it. But they
Well,
have to
yeah,
be
that's
some sort of kinetic explosive to create the shockwave to set them off.
Well, you could put them in a regular 40 millimeter shell, whatever your flavor is, smoke, fire, whatever.
Mad Sexy's like, why not drop a daisy cutter? And that's viable, sure.
That is viable.
But then again, it's going to come down to cost. I think that flail thing that they use, that's probably the ultimate solution. Because you knock out two birds with one stone, right? You get like 5 of those line abreast, and they just go straight down the field, and they do 2 things. They demine it, and they till the dirt, and then the farmers can just walk in behind it and start planting.
Oh, is this a machine or is this one of them like old timey? They got to be behind it, pushing it or whatever.
Oh no, it's like a tank, but it drives in
okay.
reverse. Because it has a
Okay.
giant blast shield on it, and then it's got this humongous flail with like a bunch of chains and little steel weights on the end of it, and it starts spinning, and that thing starts vibrating, and it just pounds the shit out of the ground.
Oh, that sounds metal.
Yeah. I
Hell yeah.
got videos on that. I think the very first one like that was one of Hobart's funnies, and then they've just modified, that thought and made it bigger and faster and safer since. Because like I've seen them on beaches and things, and it's impressive. They're just chains with what looks like a giant fishing weight on the end of it. It's like a bolt linked to a big ball on the end. So it's like a cat of 9 tails just whipping it constantly. And it's got this giant blast shield. And they just drive the vehicle backwards or whatever. Yeah, daisy cutter will till the dirt. Exactly. That's probably what it's... I'm probably saying the same thing. I just forgot the name. But anyway. Yeah, so they have a mine problem. And apparently Ukraine is the most mined country in the world. Until I become border czar, that is.
I'm back.
Welcome back. All right, so that was just the one story for Saturday. So now we're going to move into Sunday, which would have been day 130, July 3rd. And I have this photo for you, which is you're looking at obviously a broken window. No, that is not my window after my negligent discharge, but it does look strikingly similar. It does look pretty similar. I can't deny. Uh, and just as a side note, if you're gonna have a negligent discharge, you might as well just go as big as possible because mine was a 50 cal. So, oops, oops. Anyway,
Hey,
no,
shit happens, dude.
hey, no body, no crime, right?
As, as long as nobody got hurt, you're good.
Nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt. Uh, anyway, so this is the town of Lysychansk. I even pronounced that right, huh?
This is
Ma-
chunks.
Lysychansk, a major city and the last remaining stronghold in eastern Ukraine, could soon fall to Russian forces. This came from a senior advisor to President Zelensky. Lysychansk in the eastern province of Luhansk could fall as Russian forces continue their assault on the city and look to complete their siege of its sister city, Sevierodonetsk. Try saying that 10 times fast.
Say it
Uh,
once.
the advisor was Alexei Arestovich. See, that's another tough one. The two Ukrainian cities are separated by the Seversky Donetsk River, with Sevierodonetsk in the north and Lysychansk to the south. Just as a side note, I write the city names in Cyrillic. That way I get the pronunciation right. Because if I wrote it in English, I'd probably read it like a retard.
So you're
Fast-
reading Cyrillic, huh?
Just bits and pieces. Like I learned it years ago, and I can sort of figure out which ones mean what. Sometimes I see characters I don't recognize though, and then I sound like an idiot anyway.
Hmm.
So
Duh.
yes, actually, well, I'll address that in a minute. Let me finish the story first. Where was I? Last month, President Zelensky said that the two cities stood in the way of total Russian control in the region. While Russian forces have been attacking both cities in recent weeks, their occupation of Sevierodonetsk provides them with a new strategic advantage, as these forces were seen crossing the river and entering Lysychansk from the north. This is indeed a threat, and I do not rule out any one of a number of two outcomes here. Things will become much more clear within a day or two. The fall of the final holdout for Ukrainian troops in the region will shift the landscape of the war. If Lysychansk is taken, strategically it becomes more difficult for the Russians to continue their offensive. The front lines will be flatter, and there will be a frontal attack rather than from the flanks. This is Aristovich's prediction. Conversely, weapons and ammunition from the west could result in Ukraine's successful defense of the town, he says. The more Western weapons come from the front, the more picture changes in favor of Ukraine. Russian separatist forces have already claimed control of the city, though they have not, quote, liberated it, while Ukrainian officials have obviously disputed this claim.
What do they mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you talking about what do they mean by liberation?
Western? No. I get that part. What the Western weapons? What are Western weapons? Is that tanks? Is that ARs? Is that any kind of rifle with
Western
guns?
munitions is what they're
Short
talking
answer, man pads, javelins.
Got you.
Frag grenades.
They're bigger. Yeah, okay. They're bigger as shit. I got you.
Well,
The
no,
bigger
not
munitions,
just that.
there we go.
The Germans had, what's that thing called? They had donated their anti-aircraft tank. It's called what was that thing called? It's got twin 35 millimeter cannons that are satellite controlled.
Oh, we'll see. Okay, but
They're
my
badass.
question, what I meant by that though, is I kind of meant like, were they trying to demonize like Western weapons or something like? But
Oh
they just mean
no.
anything that they got from the Western
No,
civilization.
yeah, he was saying that the
I
more
got you.
access to the stuff that we've been sending, the quicker we can get it to them where they need
Gepard
it.
anti-aircraft tanks.
The Gepard, thank you. Yes, that's the one. They sent those, which is awesome. It's like
I don't know, man.
we are sending the greatest flak panzer, you know.
I'm just weary about arming other countries, like Afghanistan, other types of stuff like that. Every time we arm somebody, it seems like they want to go against us
Oh,
10
we've
years
been
later.
doing it since day 20. Like we've been doing this already for 4 months.
Right, but we
have-
keep giving them more, and we keep giving them more, and then the more that we give them, the
Jimmy-
more reserve that they have, and
Jimmy,
Yeah.
Jimmy, it's not just the United States that giving them; it's all of NATO.
Yeah. Yeah, France is
No, I
donating,
get
Germany's
that.
donating.
It's a NATO initiative. It isn't just just the United States. Because
Well, I'm not trying to point blame. I'm just saying we're arming them and arming them and arming them and arming them, and then say Russia wins. Then we have an enemy that has all the stuff that we've
Yes,
just.
that was the major concern. I'm actually
That
glad
is
you
the
said it
major
that way
concern.
too. One of the major concerns with us, the United States, was we were going to give them technology that could be seized by Russians if they were overrun, and then they would reverse engineer it or take it and then use it
Right.
against us, which is fair. That's a fair thing.
They were
However,
talking also intel as well, like classified intel.
right, but the thing is the types of munitions we've been sending, they're like one-use weapons, like a javelin, right? You fire it, you forget, you move on to the next target. So they can have the empty launcher because it's useless to them. Same thing with like the Patriot missile battery that we had donated over. We didn't
Hmm.
actually give it to the Ukrainians. We parked it on the Polish border. So we drew a line saying, okay, if anything crosses this, it's getting a fucking missile to the face. So far, it hasn't had to fire. The
Oh,
artillery,
it's automated.
no, there's a crew, but
Oh, okay.
the artillery we send, there's sort of a disconnect with the artillery. See, the problem with it is we use standard NATO 155.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine uses Soviet 152. So they sort of had to kind of adapt. Functionally, it works the same, but there was a little learning curve. We're trying to give them the things that we don't have to reteach them how to fish. Like they could just pick it up and use it. One of the companies, was it AAC? They sent something like, or no, it was Ammo Inc. They sent something like 1 million or 10 million rounds of 7.62 because it was like it was just something that they could just pick up and use. They didn't have to learn nothing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of like foreign aid we're sending. And to be fair, if you ever hear dollar amounts like, oh, the U.S. just approved another $40 billion aid package to Ukraine, we're not writing checks. What we're doing is we're giving them lines of credit up to that dollar amount, so they can say, well, we need this and this and this and this, which are things that they typically buy all the time anyway. So we're just like, okay, you're good for it because your credit's $40 billion, that kind of thing.
No, Sean. I know this is probably an impossible question to answer. Since 2014, since this war's been going on, how many ammo and firearm depots that Ukraine actually have? Like storage facilities.
Their own?
Yeah, their own, just their own for the military alone.
Whew. As
That's
far
a
as
good
I know, there's 4 major ones, and thankfully 3 of them are in the west. One of them was in Mariupol, the Azovstal Steelworks.
Mhm.
That was a big one, and it fell. It finally fell. But
And Russia took care of that.
God damn, did they put up resistance though?
They bled the Russians dry on that one.
Yeah, like Russians are still like rubbing a sore spot where their anus used to be, thanks to Mariupol, for real. I mean, they had to be pretty damn frustrated to bomb a theater full of civilians with children inside marked with stones that aircraft can see at 20,000 feet. Like, how frustrated do you have to be to drop a bomb on that? And then claim, we didn't do it. What are you talking about? Ukrainians bombed themselves.
Sounds like a narcissist, in my opinion.
Sounds like a lapdog. Oh, he's back, by the way, as you'll see later in the show.
What, Putin's lapdog?
No, Sergey Lapdog.
Oh,
It's a nickname I gave that prick.
Oh my god.
Anyway, let's see. Where did I leave off?
My bad, Sean. I just wanted to
No.
understand.
This show is all about discussion of the story and tangents and everything. I don't mind. Like,
10-4.
we're busy. We've got more viewers than we've had in a while. I guess they like this, which is great. I'm grateful to y'all for watching. And now I've got a full panel. So, you know what? If this runs long, whatever. Everyone's having a good time? Cool. Let's do it.
So, for what I understand from you, Sean, is Ukraine has a shit ton of surplus ammunition that they could actually last without us if they wanted to, theoretically.
No, not anymore.
Why is that? Because of how many years they've actually long lasted in this war with them?
It's got a little bit to do with that, but the expedition of expenditure, I guess, is a good way to put it. Wars make you go through materials fast. if I'm not mistaken, if you're in the chat and you know the statistic, you can correct me. I'm okay with that. But the last time I heard somebody from our side talk about the stuff we've been donating, if I'm not mistaken, we have donated 70% of our javelins from our own inventory and given it to Ukraine. And they used
Holy shit!
See, and that's what bothers
all
me.
of it.
That how do we know that they used all of it? Is there fucking a receipt? Do we got empty asses of these
Is
javelins
there a
to
fucking
show?
No.
registry?
Well,
Yeah, that's
no.
what I'm saying. Like, how do we know? How do we know that they? What's 70%? A million?
It's
A
like
100,000?
it's close to seven figures, from what I
So
understand.
so let's say a quarter then. Oh, let's say 3/4 then. Say 750.
Sure.
So say we give them 750. Say that they actually use 100,000 of them.
Yeah.
That means that they have all those in reserve for either Russia to take later or for them to use later against somebody that they got a problem with. That's why I don't like arming people. That was my
Well,
point earlier.
so the thing is, a javelin's not guaranteed to hit the target unless you laze it properly. Which
Well,
means
yeah,
if
but
you
that's just one.
fire it and then it
Mhm.
misses because you didn't stay locked on the target because you had to keep your head down, you're going to have a lot of near misses or strikes or whatever.
Yeah, but a
But if you
javelin is
look at
just one
the...
example, though, of how many other artillery pieces have we given them?
See, that's the thing.
We've given
We
them
didn't
stingers.
we
The
didn't give
Germans
them
gave them
that
stingers.
many. We gave them a lot of ammo for the artillery pieces, but we didn't give them that many artillery pieces. Like, I think we gave them like 100 155 artillery guns, and we gave them like 1,000,000 rounds.
Mm.
Which, honestly, one firefight with artillery, you can go through like 20,000 rounds
Oh yeah,
in a
especially
single
with
fight.
suppressive fire and all that
'Cause,
shit.
you
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
pepper the field.
Mhm.
I mean, you've seen the pictures even from World War One.
Oh yeah,
Mountains
magazines
of empty
everywhere and
shells.
shit. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like somebody probably walked up to that field and said, "Fuck, I just cornered the trench art lamp market for the next 50 years in one battlefield, you know?"
Yeah.
Anyway,
Reloader's dream.
I ain't reloading a howitzer shell. Are you kidding? I mean, one 8-pound keg right now is like close to $300, and one of those shells probably holds 20 pounds of powder. It's like, nah.
Reload them and double the price on it, whatever.
You don't even want to know what it's like to fucking reload the USS Missouri's 16-inch guns, because I think that's
Oh, Jesus.
I think that's 4 500-pound bags of gunpowder. Are they 500 pounds or 100-pound bags? Either way, it's a massive amount of powder.
Load up.
Because I
Load
mean,
up,
you're
buddy.
firing something the size of a Volkswagen, and you're sending it 20 miles downrange.
Load up, buddy. We're gonna have to fight Russia in 10 years, and they got javelins.
Yeah, I think anyone who gets to fire that gun, they've won the big bore game. Like, I concede.
Now, what about the howitzers? Has that actually made a major impact against the Russians?
I would, for me, honestly, I think artillery cannon like that, the tow behind kind, I think that's more for suppression than it is taking over an area. The stuff like the M107s, like the Paladin and things like that, those are more useful because you drive in, you set up, you fire a barrage of like 10 rounds. By the time the 10th shot is launched, the first shell is already landing, and all the corrective shots are already on the way, and then they can already drive off before return fire is sent. So it's like that's the kind of hit and run tactics that the Ukrainians need. They need things like the Paladin, and I think we've donated M107s actually to them. And I know that I think the Dutch, they sent over Panzer Haubitzes, which is kind of similar. They've got all sorts of stuff like that, though. I mean, they're getting what they need, just short of the things that they need to invade Russia, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to give them standoff weapons, just enough to shove Russia back across the border. But I think we're stopping just short of saying, okay, here's the tools you need to march right into Moscow and drag that cocksucker out of the Duma and hang him. Which is kind of a shame, because that's how you win a war. You don't stop at your border, you stop at the enemy's front door and you kill their leader. That's how a war ends.
By going into Moscow.
Yeah, but yet the world forgot how to win a war. I said this before, and I still maintain this to this day, and unfortunately, it's a sad reality. But the only people right now who are fighting a war to win it is Russia and potentially China.
Well,
They're
also,
fighting because they want to win it.
also, don't forget that the Soviets took over Berlin back in the Second World War. They went to the capital.
Well, they took half of it.
The
Like, there
point
was
is, they
a
got there before us.
yeah, there was a race.
Oh, we
Definitely.
let them.
Yeah, there was a race. Actually, you're right. There was an agreement to slow down because the Russians needed a moral victory. Because they had
No,
sacrificed
they
so
wanted the-
many soldiers on the way there. It was about being a good ally.
Yep.
That's
Taking
true.
one for the team.
That is true. That is true. But then again, years later, we realized that 20 million of those Russians were killed by Russians. They killed 20 million of their own people. That's 3 times more than Hitler killed. Food for thought.
No, if you take in all the people besides the Jews the Germans killed, it was about 20 million.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yep.
Well, if you take, okay, then
Because they killed
okay.
not
So
the
the
Jews, they
inverse of
killed
that.
anybody that didn't agree with them.
Fine, but the inverse of that is if you take into account every other thing that the Russians killed aside from their own fellow Russians, they probably killed 50 million.
Probably.
I mean, they what's that? Didn't they wipe out the Armenians?
No,
No.
that was the Turks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they did kill their own version of undesirables. Like the
Oh, yeah.
The Polish don't like
Gypsies,
the
goodbye.
Russians for a reason.
Well, I mean,
Nobody
name a
likes the
country.
Russians.
Yeah, well,
Name
name a
us-
country
name-
though. They haven't had a culling or something of the sort.
Yeah.
Name any Soviet country or
Ex-Soviet
Soviet
state.
satellite.
Oh, you know what? Fine Ape was right, and I probably should have mentioned that earlier.
What?
Javelin is fire and forget. You get a lock. The little box starts flashing. There's this huge siren. You pull the trigger, and that thing goes straight up in the air. And as soon as it goes straight up, you can walk away because it's going to do all the rest by itself. The tow missile, on the other hand, you have to focus a laser bead on it and keep it there. the
No,
whole
tow is
way.
wire guided,
I know, but you still have to aim it. The
Yeah.
wires will steer it.
but it's not laser guided.
Well, no, you paint the target, and then you have to keep the dot. You have to stay on it, and then the
No,
wires just guide it.
You keep it in the little box in the optic. There's no laser there. It's optical guided.
What's the one that uses an IR?
Don't know.
Oh well, doesn't matter. Anyway, let's see. I think I pretty much knocked out that story. I think I left out something. Oh yeah, last month President Zelensky confirmed that Russian forces occupied 20% of Ukraine, including most of the Donbas region, which includes Luhansk and the east and Donetsk to the south. The Russian army has already destroyed almost the entire Donbas region. Kind of funny, isn't it? That all the separatists are from the Donbas region and the Russians destroyed it anyway.
Yeah, because now they got nowhere to go back to.
Dude, they're pieces of shit.
It's like, hey, buddy, we're part of you. Why you destroy my house? And then the Russians are like, you're traitorous scum. We can't trust you. Your house is gone. It's kaput. Anyway, what are the more power? Let's see. The Russian army has already destroyed most of the entire Donbass. Once one of the most powerful industrial centers in Europe is simply devastated. This came from Vladimir Zelensky himself on June 2nd. The occupiers are destroying it city by city. We still don't know even exactly how many of our people were killed by the occupiers, but it stands to reason that it's in the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands in less than 100 days. Don't worry, we'll get to the actual numbers here in a bit too, because I have those. It's sobering. So, moving on from negligent discharge window shot, we'll move on to this one. And you're like, oh, it looks like a bombed out building in Ukraine. Aha! But you'd be wrong. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Belgorod. And the story reads as such. A Ukrainian missile strike, with a Y,
The why?
hit a residential area in the city of Belgorod. allegedly killing 3 people and damaging more than a dozen buildings, Russian authorities claimed Sunday. Belgorod is a Russian city 50 miles from the Ukrainian border. It is one of the few Russian cities that has seen repeated missile attacks from Ukrainian forces.
Serves them fucking right.
Exactly. Exactly. Regional Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov announced that 3 people were killed during the strike, and at least 4 had been injured. Oh no! Anyway, Jeremy Clarkson. The explosion also damaged 40 buildings.
Anyways.
Yeah, that's why I did that. It's like, that's a Clarkson thing. Ukrainian officials have yet to respond to the accusation because they're like, well, no shit. Anyway, the alleged attack comes days after Russian forces fired missiles at a shopping center full of Ukrainians, killing nearly 1,000. President Zelensky claims roughly 1,000 citizens were in the shopping center at the time of the attack. Reports say that for sure at least 18 people were killed, but the bodies are still being pulled out. 59 others were reported injured. Zelensky condemned the attack as one of the most daring terrorist attacks in European history. President Joe Biden, and other world leaders have denounced Russian President Vladimir Putin as a war criminal in recent months. Biden called for Putin to face an official war crimes trial in April. I think Biden is a little off the mark here, because he probably watched the Nuremberg trials, which I believe was recorded in 1961, and he must still think that Spencer Tracy is actually a judge and is still alive. Just saying. Anyway, the Biden administration accused Putin's regime of torturing and electrocuting Ukrainians in a statement last week. This year, we have been shocked by the horrific acts committed by Russian forces in Ukraine, including multiple credible reports of torture, such as beatings, electric shocks, and mock executions. The International Criminal Court opened its largest investigation ever into alleged war crimes in late May. The ICC is working as a part of a joint investigation team alongside Ukrainian, Polish, and Lithuanian prosecutors. The European Union's legal branch, Eurojust, is also participating in the effort. War crime allegations arose after the Russian withdrawal from around Kyiv revealed that Bucha, a town in the area, saw Russian troops kill as many as 400 citizens and force others to dig the mass graves before they too were executed in front of them. Russia's mad that Ukraine fought back. Wow. Anyway, we're going to move into Monday, unless you guys have something you want to comment on that story.
I heard last time we had like 3 Americans got captured by the Russian government.
2 for sure were retired military that lived in Alabama, I think. And their fates are, as far as I'm aware, still unknown.
They got Brittany Griner too, isn't it?
They got Brittany Griner.
She pleaded guilty. Did you read that?
Yep. She said she wishes to plead guilty, but she had no intent on breaking the law. She wants to release a statement, but she needed extra time to prepare her case, which is fine because the day she did that was the arraignment date, so the trial wasn't going to begin that day anyway. She faces 10 years in prison with hard labor, which will most likely kill her.
Send her to the gulag, and she pleaded guilty. That's why I was like, "You're stupid for pleading guilty. Like you're gone."
Her lawyers advised her to do that because they wanted to go with the angle of, I didn't intend to break your laws, but I will plead guilty to them because I was ignorant to your laws. Therefore, I'm requesting clemency. That's what she's doing.
She's stupid. Not guilty. I've done this 1,000 times. Why are you tripping this time?
Because you're not in Russia.
I don't care. No, not me. I'm saying she.
No,
She's flown a million times. You tell me this is the first time she brought hash or whatever the fuck, gummy bears or whatever.
Apparently, she never saw Locked Up Abroad.
Yeah,
like never.
It could happen anytime.
Dude, you know the Russian gulag freaking wardens are salivating at the thought of a 6'9" Amazonian woman They're gonna be
American
like,
lesbian.
yeah, like they're gonna be like, I'm going to screw her straight. And it's like, he's like, I bet you 10 rubles that she'll break your neck.
All right, hold on a second.
Introduce her to Helga.
Right.
So does Russia actually have work camps? You know, concentration camps like gulags?
Dude, Russia
I would
has
bet
one.
I would bet
I'm
money
talking
on
like
it.
now. Like, what's their new locations? I know they had one called Vorkuta back in the old days.
Russia has what they call sanitation camps or something like that now.
Like their version of FEMA, pretty much.
No,
Oh,
no, no, no,
Jesus.
no. It's like, I think they're calling them like sanitation camps or something like that in eastern Ukraine. They're concentration camps.
Ah, Jesus.
Sanitation. All the dirty motherfuckers go here.
No, it's
So,
got a different name.
So we're talking like a gulag, like Vorkuta, something like that. Then.
and I'm sure there's some
I'll
that
give
we
you the
don't
actual
know
name.
about. I'm sure there's some that are just
Filtration
hidden
camps.
somewhere.
They're calling them filtration camps.
Filtration camps.
What are they filtering?
those-
Obviously, the undesirables, right? Or
those-
what are they doing? Are they bleeding these people out and filtering their blood so they can stick them into wounded Russian soldiers?
or maybe
Let's just
so
hope-
Putin could live longer.
Let's just hope the Russian government gives them a holiday, 1 day holiday for all the fucking service they do for them.
I'll tell you what, Jimmy. There are some people in medical circles saying that fucker's got a rare form of blood cancer.
That's why they need all the dead babies they can get or live babies they can get blood transfusions.
Man,
And by the way, I've tried looking for assassination attempt videos on Putin. I still can't find anything on the internet.
No, because there ain't no guns in
leaving the
Russia.
house.
You can't assassinate the assassin.
Yeah, there ain't no guns in Russia.
No,
Show me your
it's
Not that
more
they
barcode.
know
more
of.
like,
Not
you
that
can't
they know of.
assassinate me if I stay inside.
He's like, show me your barcode. And he's like, I don't have one. Nah, you can't kill him then.
I am world's
You
best
talked
assassin.
about that shit this morning.
Yeah.
I was like, he ain't got a barcode. He's got
I
that
am world's
freaking
best
Neo
spy.
uplink in the back of your skull.
he's got all his KGB training. That's why I think it's gonna be hard for them, because you say, yeah, all the weapons in the world, whatever, and that's gonna be a big leg up. But he's got the strategy, he's got the willpower. He's been planning this for decades before it even went down. Like, I don't know. I think he's gonna be it's gonna be a hard loss.
I
He's
want to
not gonna
address
go down
something in
easily.
the chat. Mad
Mhm.
Sexy says they're pulling a play from the Third Reich playbook, and in terms of what they're doing, like the implements, I would agree, but unfortunately, they took a more modern thing. They took the playbook out of page 1 of the Democratic National Committee playbook. And I think we talked about this before. Page 1 states, always preemptively accuse the other side of which you are guilty of first. Because the Russians have, to this day, maintained that Ukraine is full of Nazis.
Well, I mean, it's every war that's ever existed.
Even the
too.
Russians have Nazis.
Wait a minute, that's the point. You see, Russia broke Godwin's law with their declaration of war. See, Godwin's law states that as soon as you bring up Adolf Hitler or Nazis, the argument is over and that person's an idiot. Russia started their war by breaking Godwin's law. And here's what's really fucked up. They employed the Wagner Group, which is a Russian neo-Nazi organization. So they're like, we're going in there to kill Nazis with our Nazis.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes, you know what? It takes evil to beat evil.
Right? So that's page 1 of the DNC playbook. Now, the
Well, Sean,
implements of destruction might come out of the Third Reich playbook, but the actual
I think what they were getting at is 2 negatives equal a positive.
But then
Russians
there's still
don't.
saying,
Yeah, but two Russians do not give you a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
and two runs don't make a good.
But
Two
yeah, I mean,
wrongs
I can
don't
see
make good. 2 potatoes do not make vodka.
I can see what he's saying
Maybe.
from a generalized statement. I guess you could maybe compare it to Germany and Poland, but like you said, the way that they're going about it is completely different.
Yeah, it's perfect DNC playbook right there.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, not even that's what I was saying before, not even DNC. I mean, if you think about it, every war we've gotten into, the people had to be mad at the people we were going against, We had to be mad at Afghanistan. We had to be mad at Vietnam. They attacked one of our ships. We had to be mad at Japan. We had to be, We
Yeah.
had to be mad to do something. I think it's just the same thing that's what he's pulling over there. He's trying to make everybody mad at the Ukraine so he could have a reason to
No,
genocide them.
But we had
no.
no
Here's
reason to be mad at the Ukraine. It's like Russia's just
Nah.
like, imagine if Russia points at Finland tomorrow and goes, "There's full of Nazis in there," and everyone's like, "Just shut the fuck up."
hold on. Actually, speaking of which, that just gave me an interesting thought. What if Finland itself, tried to actually attack Russia from the other side, and actually Ukraine and Finland together could actually take over Moscow?
You're talking about
Box.
across their 900-mile long border?
They could still box them in. I don't know
I
how
don't
big
see
their
how why
army
would
is.
not stop it. Yeah, they
I
take
tell
on
you
Moscow.
exactly why. This is the one time where I think this could actually happen. If Ukraine had enough strength to push back on Russia, and Finland decided that they would push into Russia, number one, their application to join NATO would be struck. They'd be like, "Nope, you did that. Without our consent, you're out."
Who
You're on
needs
your own."
Russia's consent?
No, NATO's consent.
Oh,
They would immediately be expelled because they didn't talk to NATO about it first. That's the first problem. The second problem is if that actually happened, that would piss Putin off so bad that he would use low-yield nuclear weapons and wipe Finland out.
are you seriously thinking he's
Absolutely.
gonna be that stupid enough to do
It's
that?
not that he's stupid. He just wants to get that shit over with quickly so he can go back to his
Jesus
conquest of
Christ.
Ukraine.
I agree, but I disagree. I still think that he's using his strategy. I think he has a strategy about him.
Putin?
I don't think that he's just going to go blind, but I do think he's going to go balls to the wall. This is his last hurrah. I heard about cancer. I don't know if it's blood cancer or whatever. I believe you, though. I don't have a reason not to. But this is his last hurrah. So
I'm
he's
not
going to
Doesn't
go
he have
sure.
balls to the
Parkinson's?
wall, but he's going to try to win.
I'm not
Does he
sure
have
he's going all
Parkinson's?
out. No, the Biden does. I'm not sure he's going all out because
Not
if
yet,
you think about
no.
it, no, I mean, okay, follow me here.
Okay.
How long did it take Russia to use chemical and biological weapons out of frustration in Syria?
Blink of
Less
an eye.
than 131 days. Less. They did it faster, right? It was a sandbox, a shitty, tinier country with nothing logistically important to them. And yet they got frustrated to the point where they went straight to chemical and biological weapons. Why? Were they beta testing the weapons? No, I don't say that as a joke. I'm serious.
No, but I don't think they. Of course not. I don't
Right.
think they were.
So you don't think Russia, after being globally embarrassed out of their push in Kyiv with their 40-mile long traffic jam, or getting their shit pushed in by Su-27s that are really outdated, or getting entire tank columns decimated with javelins, you don't think that would have pissed him off and be like, "Fuck this, release the smallpox"?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Give him the SARS blanket, the smallpox blankets.
It's like his justification to try to take the Donbas region was that he has Russian separatists that are being wholesale slaughtered. Without any proof, he made that accusation, and he was going to go into that region to, quote, liberate them, right?
Yeah.
Because his separatists needs to save them, right? So let's say he swiggity swoogity in there and tries to save them.
Slide on in.
He did, but he leveled all the cities in the process. So it's
Sometimes you got to break it and rebuild it.
yeah, and I'm thinking of that American diplomacy meme of "we're gonna free the shit out of you" with all the bombs in it.
Yeah.
But it's like, the reason he's going into Donbas is because he wants to landlock Ukraine. He wants to get that road from Russia all the way to Crimea, across the Ukrainian southern border, by taking the entire coast of the Azov Sea, which is that little part in the north of the Black Sea. It's called the Sea of Azov. He wants that. And then he's pushing from a Crimea east or west to try to take over Odessa, which is the last port city that Ukraine holds. There were 5 major ones. They've lost 4. They've only got Odessa left. Moldova is sympathetic, so they don't mess with shipping, and they're poor. so they want to be left the fuck alone, as the caption states. But if they take over Odessa, Ukraine becomes a landlocked nation. Moldova has nothing that can help them because they're poor. They don't have anything, right? And then you've got like Hungary and Poland, Czechoslovakia, and I can't remember what the other country is that's touching. But what are they going to do? They can't help them. They're only going to be evacuation routes. So Russia would literally cleave 1/3 of the bottom of the country away to tie all of the Black Sea away from Ukraine, which means no more shipping for Ukraine. Everything has to be done through the permission of Russia if they want to use the seaports. That's why they're doing that.
What else I was going to mention? Oh,
But then you got Belarus that wants to push in from the top. So now it's like two jaws clamping down on it. That's what it's looking like.
It's funny you mentioned shipping, Sean. I actually came across something interesting from Lithuania. Lithuania is actually crushing down on their Russian shipments coming from Kaliningrad.
Yes.
So,
and that's that little bit of Poland that Russia still holds, right?
Lithuania or Poland, regardless, it was given to them during after the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
In Kaliningrad, theoretically, could we actually force the Russians out of that territory and it would actually be given back to Lithuania or Poland?
Well, so what I think may happen, we're going into speculation time here, but this isn't E Honda level tinfoil hat sponsored by Reynolds Wrap.
Of course.
We'll get to that later. We'll get to that later for fun. The way things are going is if Ukraine holds out long enough that all this aid actually really does turn the tide, realistically speaking, if they're allowed to go in and take Putin out, then they can have Crimea back and all the territory they lost in the meantime, right? And then a sensible Zelensky would say, that's enough. I just wanted my country back. I don't want their country. I just wanted mine back. You guys stay on that side of the Volga and leave us the fuck alone. I think he would be satisfied with that. However, NATO would be frustrated to the point where if they had to get involved, not only would they make sure that Crimea goes back to Ukraine, they would sanction Russia for the rest of eternity. They would remain a second world country for the next 50 years. Kaliningrad would be taken by force as war reparations. I wouldn't doubt that for a fucking minute. Because the Polish and the Lithuanians and the Estonians are chomping at the bit for that. They were like, why do we allow this little genital wart of Russia exist? Right? It's like, it's not even connected. That's ours. Fuck off. Yeah, the longer this goes on...
It was given to the Russians by the Germans.
Right. The longer this goes on, the more that NATO will justify seizure of stuff. It's not my mic, Mad Sexy. It's actually Warsaw backfeeding.
I was going to say, I'm catching a nasty feedback. I thought it was me for a second.
Nah. It's because he doesn't wear a headset, I guess.
Hold on a sec. Let me fix that.
So, while we're taking this little pause for, whatever, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Russia, and back in World War II,
yeah.
Friends of the Nazis, right?
In the beginning, they signed a non-aggression pact.
Right.
So they were neutral.
But then Germany went against them.
Yes.
Tried to go in there. We're not friends anymore.
Yes.
So if Germany didn't do that, then them and Russia would technically still have the same ideals and be on the same side?
They were on the same side. They were neutral.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. But wouldn't give a fuck?
They wouldn't care, no.
Yes. So, I mean, in a roundabout way, are the Russians Nazis?
Well, basically what had happened was the Russian non-aggression pact was like this gentleman's agreement, even though both sides were side-eyeing one another while they were signing it.
Right. Of course, yeah.
But the way it worked was they decided that, look, we Nazis want living space, and you Russians want Poland. We'll give you the eastern half of Poland, and we'll take the western half and everything below it. and we will not attack you. And Russia was like, fine.
Hmm.
That was pretty much the way that played out. Fine.
Yeah.
And then
No,
and
yeah.
then they side-eyed it, and Stalin signed it with a twitchy beard and a side eye, and Hitler with his little gay little mustache signed it with his little side eye. They both turned around with their fingers crossed behind their back and they walked away. And
Hoping they didn't
the
get
Russians
shot.
were like, if that fucker double crosses me, I will burn Berlin, right? And then Hitler was like, the first second we get, we're gonna swiggity swooty take that booty. And guess what happened? They did. And then they got their
And
shit
then
pushed
they
in because
lost.
they did it in
Yeah.
the winter.
And then they lost.
They
Yeah.
lost.
Our
Because-
favorite time.
Because, Jimmy, what don't you do?
Yeah, bite the hand that feeds you?
No. Like Napoleon,
You never
don't
poke the
attack
bear.
Russia in the winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? You could do it now.
You can do it now because
No.
now we have technology.
We have
now.
heaters.
But still, though, okay, being neutral while watching mass genocide, and I mean, isn't
You
that
mean
kind
like
of
we
a
did
little
in World
bit?
War One until 1916?
Remember.
Yeah.
You mean like we did? You mean like we did in World War II as Lords of War until 1941?
The Communist Party in charge of the Soviet Union didn't like religion in general until
No, they were
until it was-
Orthodox.
no,
Yeah, they
no,
were-
They were
actually-
Orthodox.
Yes,
They
they were.
trampled on the Orthodox.
No, they were Orthodox. They're Orthodox to this day. They have a deacon that is blessing this attack. That the Pope is.
Well, the
the
thing
Pope
is that when you
pissed
look,
because of it.
well, the thing is when you look at how communism spread throughout, like for instance, Vietnam, communism was just an idea, and then every country decided to go on that idea and apply it to themselves. Like Russia didn't go into Vietnam as an example and say, "You become communist." They looked at it and said, so you're telling me you're for the people, but they never correlated to European people. It was only for European people, not for indigenous Vietnamese, Chinese, or whatever. They
Their
just,
people, not
yeah,
people.
yeah. It was supposed to be viewed as a European class of people. That means Slavic, French. France was actually kind of communist and socialist before World War II.
They kind of still are actually.
No, I know, but
Not
before World War.
derogatorily speaking. I mean,
Yeah.
they have that kind of tendency still.
So the thing is that China, like, mind you, Vietnam wanted to become communist because of Mao. And Mao is like, well, the Americans fucked me in World War II. I guess I got to become communist. And then you go to China, and the same thing happened where Russia was like, I'll supply you these guns. And they're like, okay, because communism inherently is violent.
Well, then there was also Korean War with the North Koreans when
The problem
Kim
is,
Where's
well-
the proxy
Il-sung.
war? No.
the problem
Kim
Yeah, but in
Il-sung.
Vietnam,
No, Kim
Vietnam and
Il-sung.
Korea,
Japan invaded China, okay, and we only backed the nationalists, in China instead of the communists, and eventually the communists took over from the nationalists, and the nationalists retreated to Taiwan, and that's why they've been trying to attack Taiwan because the Taiwanese government is the remnants of the nationalist Chinese party.
Chiang
no,
Kai-shek.
you are right. You are right, but did you know that we had in hand in most of the Asian countries, we as the United States fucked relations to get to become communist?
Well, the problem with some of the wars in China or in Asia in general, half of them were the French's fault in the early.
No,
in the early 20th
you're
century.
right. But the thing was is that, for instance, Vietnam, we went in there in 1940.
That's
Huh?
France's fault. That's France's fault.
No,
because
I know, but I'm
Vietnam
trying
was
to
He's
a
talking
colonial-
about before even that.
No.
Hang
I'm
on.
trying to lay
Hang on,
out the background
We have a
for
chat napper.
what?
We have a chat napper.
No.
Bullshit.
I swear I thought I heard.
Bullshit. I heard you sawing logs.
I heard it too.
Bullshit.
Sawing logs, man.
Yeah,
Well,
if I
well,
was
you're right,
throwing
Night
logs,
Striker.
how would I
Was
have
the French.
responded so quickly?
Because you snap awake when I start saying shit like that. You're like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm fine.
Let's get to the point, guys.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, I want to reach some. We're tangenting a little off into different ways, but Mad Sexy had a
Well,
good question.
I was
He
gonna get.
says, "Do you think this war goes in favor of Ukraine or that Russia would use VX or nuclear?"
Absolutely.
Uh,
No, if
see,
they were going to use it, they would have
Well,
done it.
Maybe not
well,
They're
nuclear, but they would.
pussies.
If Russia really wanted to win and wanted to burn every single bridge in the world, that they haven't done so already, they would have already used the nuclear weapon.
I don't agree
you know,
because
the
they're
stats.
Fucking
talking about
pussies,
this.
dude.
No, they're talking about this whole new world order thing, right? And coincidentally, so is Captain Sundown. And you have to wonder,
Love
you
that.
have to wonder
It's a great
with
name.
Biden's business dealings and with this story and hit piece about the strategic oil reserves being tapped and oil being sent to China right now, which is ridiculous, right?
Wait, what?
And it's treason.
And it's treason. You
Wait,
have to
he's sending
wonder,
oil out to China?
supposedly, but you have to wonder, where does Captain
Well, he's sending
Sundown
out
think
to
he
Asia in
fits?
general.
Where does he think where do you think that he thinks he fits in this new world order? Russia, you said, what if Russia burns all bridges? What if Russia doesn't care because his new world order is him and China and like a couple of his satellite countries, and then he strong arms India to go, okay, we play along because they don't want to be destroyed. Right?
Okay, well, I gotta ask.
Geographically speaking, that's a huge part of the world.
Well, I gotta add something to that about. So contextually, Biden sent our oil reserves in part of the NATO's charter.
Yes.
So in reality, he's not doing nothing wrong. He could do that.
Yes.
He could effectively do anything because we're in the United Nations Charter.
Right.
For instance, any aid, militarily, economically, aid in general is a big blanket statement for NATO.
Mm-hmm.
So he sent that on the Charter of the United Nations. So he could do that. But the problem with doing that is that he is, I think, in my opinion, I think there's going to be a bigger war happening. That's why he's sending some of our oil. Because if you look at, we are still supporting in the United Nations, we're still supporting Ukraine, even though realistically we're not supposed to. No country is supposed to under the United Nations charters. We're technically breaking a law in doing so. Because if you look at it, it says, regardless of war crimes, genocide, humanitarians, anything, we're not allowed to send any equipment to any country that is a sovereign nation. So Ukraine is considered a sovereign nation.
Right.
Tell
but
that to South Korea.
Wait a minute, though. The question is you're not allowed to send it, right, unilaterally.
Mhm.
But are you allowed
Yeah.
to send it at that nation's request
No, you're not. Nope.
as a
Nope, you're not.
humanitarian gesture?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
so the doctrine says that if you're not part of the club can't help you.
You cannot. Okay, so the doctrine says if you ever aid and abet a nation in times of conflict with one against another nation,
Yes.
for instance, Russia's a sovereign nation, Ukraine's a sovereign nation,
Right.
and their borders are neighboring between each other, like let's say Texas and Nevada, you cannot intervene militarily. You can only aid in this aspect of refugees because there's a part of the United Nations Charter which only addresses foreign nationals or foreign aid agency.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you
Except tell
cannot.
that to South Korea.
So you know what that does,
Yeah.
though, is that makes the situation that much more fucked up. Because the fact of the matter
Well-
is Sweden and Finland got in 4 months, and Ukraine has tried to get in for 8 years.
Well, no, that's not fucked up because if you
That's
look at it
fucked
this way,
up. 8 years
No, no,
versus
listen.
4
It is.
months.
no, let me explain, then I'll tell you what part's fucked up and what isn't. Okay, so in the UN Charter, you're not allowed to admit any nation that's under attack by any other sovereign nation because what you're doing is that
Picking
you're only
sides.
helping them, huh?
You're picking sides.
Yes, exactly. So in reality, they're not supposed to.
Okay,
You're not
wait.
allowed.
Time out. Sidebar.
Mm.
We are a country here
Hmm.
that has told society recently, lately, that we do not tolerate bullies. Because then
Exactly. Yeah.
that turns into, if we let bullies do their thing, then the one who gets tortured becomes a school shooter, right?
Hmm.
Because they were bullied. So we
Yeah.
become a nation intolerant to bullying for a just cause, for a just reason, right?
Hmm.
So what you're telling me is NATO charter is the bully.
In other
Because
words, just
because they're
because you got
saying that
signed
you
a
can't
club.
choose sides. Because I'm really glad you brought this up, by the way. Because I had
Well, the
always asked
reason
this
how I learned
question.
this.
Well,
Well, the
hang
thing
on
is
a sec.
how I learned it.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is this answered a question before I got to ask it. We always talk about Article 5 protections. We talk about how we can't do certain things because that'll, quote, provoke Russia. But the fact of the matter is Russia is the aggressor here. So it doesn't matter if you're provoking them because they're the attacker on a sovereign nation, right? So who cares if you provoke them because they're the ones who started this shit in the first place.
This
On
is just
top
like the German mindset.
on top of that, you can't you can't install a no-fly zone in someone else's country, even if that other country is begging you to. Why, right? Because the fact of the matter is you should be able to. If NATO was supposed to be as an upstanding organization that the world wants to very graciously join by the masses, like it's a club that everyone wants to get into, then NATO should have said, "Look, Ukraine, you're not part of us yet, but we're really sad to watch you getting bullied around by another nation. So we're going to send in planes because you
That's a
asked
form
us
of
to."
bribery.
No,
See that?
we're gonna ask you asked us to help you, right?
But
Against that bully. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let the Polish people fly their jets in and help you. We're gonna land the supplies in your country because it's
right,
pretty
but
fucked up that they're in your country attacking you.
right, but that could look bad on the UN in both ways, though. It could look like they're showing
The UN
favoritism
and
to a
NATO are two
sovereign
different
nation.
things.
Well, okay, NATO, same difference to me. But I understand what you're saying. But okay, so NATO, still nonetheless, it would be showing favoritism to a nation, and then
Correct.
on top of that, it would look like they were trying to
Playing
influence them
favorites.
to join them.
Correct. But that's
It's
the
two
thing.
bad on two different fronts.
We
That's
didn't
probably
ask
why
them to
they have
join.
the law.
That's the thing, though. They didn't ask Ukraine to join. Ukraine asked them if they could join. So it's different. It's the opposite of that.
Well, I'm sure there's a process to it, and they're not joined yet,
Well,
so
okay.
they
Well,
still got
the
to.
main process.
Yeah, there is a process. There's certain financial things that you have to have. There's certain industry things you have to have. There's certain military things you're supposed to have. And I'm sitting there scratching my head, going, what the fuck does Finland offer that NATO wants that let them get in 4 months? I'll tell you what they have. They have a 900-mile border with Russia. That's what they have. Here's the other thing. The
They're also
doctrine
up in
says
north.
the doctrine says you can't accept a country that's currently under attack by another sovereign nation, right? Ukraine
That's correct.
begged to join before Crimea was taken. And what did NATO say? Well, Ukraine, we'd really like to have you, but you've got nuclear weapons. Tell you what,
Well, the
you get rid of those
well,
nuclear weapons, and we'll consider your admission into NATO. And Ukraine was like, listen, if I do what you're asking me to do, then my deterrent from an invasion from the very country I'm trying to ask you to save me from will walk in and unopposed. And NATO
They,
was like, sorry, bro, that's the rules. So what
they
does
gave
Ukraine
up
do?
their nuclear weapons in the 90s.
So they began to, but the thing is they still had possession of nuclear arsenal, the nuclear arsenal that Russia left behind. They still had that, and
From the
then
Cold
and
War era.
and NATO said, if you get rid of that, we'll consider your admission into Ukraine or into NATO. And Ukraine's like, but that's the only deterrent we have to stop an invasion now. We need to be in now, and then we can give up this stuff that you're asking us to. And NATO was like, nope, sorry, that's the rules. So what does Ukraine do? They abide. They conform. They denuclearized. And what happened months later? Russia
Began
took
invading.
Crimea. Now they became a nation invaded by a sovereign nation which now you're saying doctrine will not allow them to get admitted. How fucked up is
Exactly.
that? They asked
Sounds-
before the invasion. They were denied because of nuclear weapons, which kept the invasion from happening. Then they
Sounds-
disarmed, and the invasion happened.
Sounds like NATO's in on that shit.
Exactly.
Well, okay, watch this. So, okay, UN has a group of people, obviously, they represent the different nations, and they all vote, right?
Yes.
They also look at how much GDP are being sent to different nations under the UN Charter. So, the United States is up there.
Yeah, it's a
So the
club you
United
buy
States had a,
into.
huh?
It's a club you buy into.
Oh, no, I know, but my point is that the United States already was up there to vote yes. It only takes a certain amount of UN people,
Yes.
countries,
Yes.
to say yes. And the United States, along with obviously Britain and other ones, are there to say yes. And I believe, I
You're
could be
talking
wrong.
about the UN, and we're talking about NATO. And in NATO, to get admitted, all the NATO members have to agree. All of them. Which is why the Sweden and Finland thing took actually as long as it did, because Turkey was the only holdout vote. Turkey said no.
Yeah, so what did Turkey get to vote yes?
Okay, so the concession well, night, Mad Sexy. Turkey's concession was, we will go ahead and allow this if you remove the extradition restrictions for those that we had deemed terrorists that are hiding in your country that were against the Turkish Kurd, or that was helping Turkish Kurds. So it became a Kurdish thing again, which is
So
a really
wait.
sticky. That's a really sticky situation if you think about it.
So
Because
so wait,
we're in
Give the fucking Kurds their own fucking
We're in the
country.
business of helping Kurds because they were helping us in Iraq.
they helped us against fucking ISIS.
Exactly. And yet the Turks don't like them. So the Turks were like, look, Kurds are terrorists and you guys support terrorism. So until you stop the extradition, or unless you extradite the people we say are terrorists in your country, we're not going to vote yes. So there was a meeting, there was a handshake, there was a nod, and Turkey said, yep, we're cool, we're happy. Which means Sweden capitulated and Finland
I'm sorry.
capitulated.
I'm sorry, but I'm staying with the Kurds. Fuck Turkey.
Too late. It's already a done deal.
Ay, motherfucker.
That's the whole point. See, that's the whole point of that's the whole point of NATO. It's a boys' club you have to buy into, and ethnicities be damned if it's not part of the status quo. Your ally is your enemy the next day because the other person in your group hates that group. It's like, then why did we let Turkey in the first place?
If I did it, then you might as well just be signing up Iran then.
Well, no, this is the beauty of this is that's the beginning of the end. Because people are going to start looking at this going, you're picking favorites into a boys' club that people have to buy into. You had disarmed a nation who had the only deterrent they needed to stop Russia from coming in. You took that from them, and now you left them invaded and vulnerable and dead by the tens of thousands. You heinous assholes.
And this was going on for close to 9 years
who
now.
in their right mind would want to join the EU or NATO or anything after that, after seeing what just took place? If you draw
Betrayal.
the timeline out in black and white, they fucked Ukraine. And then
Pretty much.
And then right in front of them, they smiled and waved in Sweden and Finland. Now, you talk about GDP and industry and all that. What does Sweden have? Scania, okay, HGVs, Saab, fighter jets, I'll give you that. IKEA, it sounds like a joke, but it's a big company, right? They have those. What does Finland have?
Wait, you forgot Husqvarna.
Husqvarna, okay, fine. But my point is what did Finland bring to the table? A 900-mile border with the enemy. And that was good enough.
Don't they have that Hadron Collider? Who has that? One of them, Swedish, Finland.
Well,
France.
France has that?
Yeah.
I thought that was underground somewhere in like the
We
land.
got one of those in Texas.
up until 2002, Finland had, Sima Haya.
Oh, Jesus Christ. One sniper does not bring you into NATO. Anyway.
No, but it does keep the Russians
We
at bay.
really
Let's keep
tangented
the
off.
army away.
Like, we should get back to the stories.
Okay, all right.
All right, all right.
You guys don't want to talk about particle collisions?
Yeah, we can talk about. Or you want to
Well,
talk
you know what? I'm gonna make my own NATO now.
the
Who wants to
super
join my NATO?
collider atom smasher that was built in Texas. Basically, what we're gonna do is supermodel former Governor Rick Perry, guy I freaking can't stand. He's gonna lose it one day because he still can't be president, just like Beto O'Rourke, fake Mexican real pendejo. Um, they're gonna go down together. Rick Perry's gonna stand on one side of the atom smasher, and then Beto O'Rourke's gonna be on the other. They're gonna turn it on. It's gonna slam them two together at the force of the speed of light. It's gonna create a black hole that sinks the Texas border with Mexico, and then all of our illegal immigration problems are solved because Texas becomes a black hole.
I've been hearing that Beto's been getting a lot of momentum.
No, dude, he disappeared again.
Dude, he fucking pissed off a whole crowd when he was saying, "Oh, we need to ban this. We got to ban this." After all the Uvalde
You
incident.
guys are talking about his appearances weeks ago. See, you got to remember, he's
Oh,
like
no,
a,
they remember-
he's like a
remember the
fucking
old-
boll weevil. He disappears underground for months at a time, and then shows
Remember the
back
old-
up with $7 or $8 million of campaign finance money that he was blowing fucking, I don't know, blowing lines of coke off a hooker's ass somewhere, because that motherfucker always has herpes on his face. Anyway. Can you tell I'm not really a fan of Robert Francis O'Rourke?
Well, how about the part where he said, "I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch right now."
Yeah. Oh, you mean when the mayor of Uvalde
Yes.
fucking face
Can we just
fucked
get
his own-
Ryan Reynolds to start going around looking for Francis?
You know what's funny? My friend mentioned that yesterday on Facebook about Beto, and the first thing I did was sent him a reply of that scene in Deadpool where he stacked the bodies that spelled Francis.
Francis.
Yeah. Because the thing is he got the same text I did. Hi, so-and-so. I'm from Beto O'Rourke's campaign. Can we count on your vote? I sent the picture as a reply. I was like, his name is Francis, 4th generation Irishman, fake Mexican, real pendejo. Never got a reply. Because it's a bot anyway. But if there was somebody on the other end, they probably looked at that, snickered a little bit, and go, yeah, he's not voting for him. Anyway, we got to move on, dude. I'm only up to Monday. God, this is going to be a 3-hour show.
Okay, I'm gonna go on another tangent.
Dude,
So,
you guys ever fun? I'm going to get some sleep, dude.
I'm going to ban tangents here in a second. All right.
What do you mean ban tangents? This barely came here.
I know, but you keep dragging us into them. You're like the
Okay,
lady.
fine,
What's that? You're like
okay,
lady in the water, and you're trying to drag us under. You
Okay, fine. I want to make my own NATO then.
You
I want to make my own
Rusalki
NATO.
bastard.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I went there.
Oh,
Anyway.
that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, if y'all don't
It's
know
okay.
if y'all don't know what Rusalki is, go look it up. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's still my best friend anyways.
It's cool. You still get my guns if I die, and vice versa, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
still works.
All right.
Okay, cool.
All right. Anyway, I think. By the way, I think your sister came up as this could be one of your friends on Facebook thing. I was like, ¿Por qué?
Damn.
I was like,
she's
wait a minute.
she's in the loop, bro.
Yeah, I was like, I know this name.
He's like,
Anyway, all right,
Am I in the
so
clear?
we're moving into the 4th of July, finally. Monday, day 131, because we got to get through these. And this was the one that really asked me, what the fuck. So we are about to hit some E-Honda shit here. So here's a picture. It's not ultimately tied to the story, but it was in it. European support for Ukrainian recovery may rely on the country reforming, quote, social policies.
Who did Ukraine piss off?
Let me reread the headline. European support for Ukrainian recovery. So they're talking about what to do when the war is over, right? May rely on country reforming, quote, social policies.
We're not going to help you unless you change these policies that we
Yes.
don't like.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like I said, who did Ukraine?
Piss off.
Whose wife did they fuck?
Oh, you're about to find out. Because my response when I read that, I literally fell out of my chair. I was like, do we really have time for this shit right now? So here's the story. The European Union plans to invest $104 billion, which is nice, to rebuild Ukrainian infrastructure blasted during Russia's invasion. The European Investment Bank aims to create a EU-Ukraine Gateway Trust Fund by which EU countries could contribute to Ukraine's recovery in the form of grants, loans, and guarantees, reported by Reuters on Monday. The investment plan comes as Russia has decimated infrastructure with missile and artillery attacks across Ukraine, but primarily in its eastern region. Europe kicked off the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Switzerland on Monday. The event was originally scheduled as the annual Ukraine Reform Conference, where high-level politicians from European countries supporting Ukraine have met with the country's leaders in the past. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address the conference, where the country's officials are set to receive a report card of sorts on Ukraine's recent progress towards modernization. The conference will focus on Ukraine's progress on economic, environmental, social, and governmental reforms. The conference argues that continued support for Ukraine relies on the country making further progress on the areas particularly in social policy. Many challenges remain, and continued progress in social policy reforms will be critical in Ukraine's post-conflict recovery. This is all word salad, isn't it?
Hmm?
The tracker went on...
Jambalaya.
Well, it's going to get nastier. The tracker went on to highlight Ukraine's record on LGBT rights. So now you know who's fucking around in Ukraine. Because gay marriage apparently is still illegal in Ukraine. Though the
Right.
report... Yeah.
Go on. No, go on, because I got something to say, but I don't remember it.
Though the report praised the country's government for defending gay pride parades in its major cities. As indicated by Ukraine's ranking in the ILGA, Europe's Rainbow Europe Index. Yeah, that's exactly how it was written. ILGA, Europe's Rainbow Europe Index. Word salad. This progress stagnated in recent years, the tracker wrote of Ukrainian LGBT reforms. For example, while Ukraine's parliament registered bills that propose protection from hate crimes on the grounds of sexual orientation or gender identity, these have not yet been passed. It is essential to emphasize that Ukraine must adopt an inclusive and participatory approach to recovery, with the full involvement of diverse stakeholders from civil society. Reparations will constitute a key part of this process. The URC states that Ukraine's continued progress on social, economic, governmental, and environmental reforms will be essential to the nation's recovery after the war. So I ask you again, do we really have time for this shit right now? Because let me remind you of something. We did this shit in America. We have catered to the needs of alternative groups in the name of inclusion and tolerance. And what did we get out of it? Drag queen reading hour, transgender athletes destroying female athletics nationwide.
Latinx.
The one weightlifter tranny didn't do so good.
Right, because his balls are out. But anyway, my point is they're saying that they have to do all this shit, and yet they're not looking at the country who did it and is now in socio-turmoil. Socio-economic, socio-psychotic, or psychological turmoil. I mean, think about it. We have drag queen reading hour in elementary schools. We have school districts taking out the word mother and replacing it with birthing parent. We have children being taught the pleasures of sex in first fucking grade right now as part of the curriculum. We have schools telling parents that they're not allowed to raise their children anymore because it takes a village. Are you fucking kidding me? You are saying that Ukraine has to adopt this fucking circus before you will help rebuild the decimated country that you allowed happen? I'm sorry. Did we all lose our fucking minds, or have we just let so many weak, pathetic, and odd people into power that the normal people are now the minority? And now we have to sit down and let them fuck up the world?
The second one.
Well, this is... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm not even being hateful here. Like I said in the beginning, we did this in the name of inclusion and tolerance. But the problem is we have allowed the inmates to run the asylum now, and they're running rampant, doing extreme things.
Well, no, I agree. The thing that a lot of people are having the conception is that most Slavic countries are mostly anti, LGBT, whatever.
Because they're
So
heavily religiously
Slavic,
based,
yeah, they're Slavic, the
right?
Orthodox.
Well,
Yes,
Ukraine isn't. The leader
Well,
is
but
Jewish, for God's sakes.
but see, that
well,
was
no,
kind
I
of the
know,
point that
but
I
I
was
mean the
gonna.
culture.
That was kind of the point I was gonna make too. Is about what about other bigger countries like Egypt or Kuwait or shit, other people that like
Those are all the
still throw
countries that throw people off of
throw
roofs.
gays off of mountaintops and shit like that. Like, what about that?
But see, they're not
Are
under
they
war
too
from.
big to reform?
They're not under attack by Russia. They're not trying to join NATO, so they don't count. They're
So
shadow
Ukraine
countries.
kind of brought this attention onto themselves
Sort of. I
in a
mean,
way.
in a way, but I mean, it's like, think of it if you're Vladimir Zelensky, right? You're like, I need help. I'm being attacked. I really wanted to join NATO to prevent this. You gave me these stupid rules. I played by them. Russia's attacking me now. Now your doctrine says you can't help. And now you're saying that even if I do survive this war, you'll rebuild my country only if I do these other stupid hoops? Like, haven't I conceded enough to you people? That's kind of where he's at.
Yeah.
And look at it like this too. You brought up something earlier that really resonated here with me. You brought up Afghanistan. Somebody else brought up Vietnam. Think about those conflicts. In every one of those, we stuck our nose in someone else's business, half-assed. We didn't fight a war to victory, to absolute victory. We didn't fight it to win it. We fought it to a stalemate, or we fought it to a defeat. And then we walked away saying, we didn't lose, what are you talking about? Well, we didn't win either, so what the fuck do you call that? And
It wasn't our war.
what did we develop out of that? Generations of an entire nation hating us.
Hmm.
Right? We went into Vietnam, the Vietnamese hated us. We went into fucking Afghanistan, the Afghanis hated us. We went into Iraq, the Iraqis hate us. We tried to do something with Iran before. The Iranians hate us. What do you think is going to happen if the West turns its back on Ukraine? Russia takes over, executes Volodymyr Zelensky on live TV, and then tells the remaining beaten down people of Ukraine, where is your Western savior now? That's what they're going to do. And then Ukraine will hate us for eternity. Not us specifically, the West. They will never want to join Europe after that. They will hate the idea of the nation, the multinational thing that they wanted to be a part of because they thought it was pure and beautiful to be in, shit all over them and left them to their fate. And now they're crushed by the Starks or the fucking Lannisters, right?
Well, you look at Iran, where we did a coup, where we pretty much installed somebody there
Puppet
to
governments.
bring, huh?
Puppet governments.
No, yeah. But my point is that they've looked at us with very appealing, and oh, they're Americans. They're not like the Europeans
Yeah,
until we fuck them.
yeah.
And now you look at Iran
Death to America.
right now.
Death to
Yeah, well,
America every day.
that's the infidels.
No,
Right.
Iran is what happens when religious zealots take over a government.
Not even that. Religion, if you really look at the microscopic, religion has a small, minute aspect on that. The fact is that, well,
No,
the fact that,
everything
well,
goes through the Ayatollah before it goes through the president of Iran.
It all
no,
goes through the
well, no.
president
My
of
point is
Yeah.
that
religious
before this, before we even intervened, religion was not as big. Now, after we fucked them, religion became a big thing because
It
if
was
they
the only
can't get
thing left that was
That's what they
organized to
had.
hold
Yeah.
people
exactly,
together.
exactly my point. That's
Fair
my
enough.
point. That was
Fair enough.
that's my point.
Okay. There was a movie years ago. Some of you've seen it. It's called Green Zone. And what it dealt with, the beginning of the movie dealt with the search for WMD. Matt Damon, right? Remember that movie? And it had people trying to find WMD, and like the intel was all bad, and they were looking for this guy they codenamed Magellan, who was actually an Iranian general, but they didn't know. Only the one person who had the source knew, and like they kept feeding him bad intel because they just wanted to keep people running in circles. The beginning of that movie is about WMD, but the end of that movie is what the movie was actually about. And it was a recipe for what eventually became known as the Arab Spring. If you looked at what happened in that movie Green Zone, it's sort of what actually happened. We took out a regime, then we sort of told the entire Iraqi military, you're fired, instead of employing them to secure the nation and keep it from spinning off into chaos. They would have done that, but they were told, fuck off, you're fired. And it created a power vacuum. And then we tried to install a puppet government, and what happened? Chaos, right? Civil wars, chaos. Kurds versus this, Shiites versus Sunnis. It was like a tribal battle. And we were like, whoa, 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 whoa. We took out this one guy, which all of you said was bad, and now you're all going to infight about who takes over the country? Just use our guy. And they were like, your guy was a fucking refugee who hasn't stepped a foot in this country in 30 years. He doesn't know shit about anything on the ground. His finger is not on the pulse of this country. It created a power vacuum, and they fought for years trying to sort out who would be in charge. And guess who ended up kind of winning out? Terrorism. The Arab Spring of the 2000s, right? It was a fascinating time in history. Because if you notice, it started with like Libya. And if you looked at the flags, the national flags of all the countries across the top of Africa before the Arab Spring began, they all were unique and they were all different and they had colors. By the time the Arab Spring started in Libya and creeped all the way across to Egypt with Mubarak, every flag in the top of that country was flying red, white, and green with a black crescent star and a scimitar. Because it was the Arab Spring. And it started off with good intentions. But every nation that went into created a power vacuum. And Al-Qaeda slowly took over every single one of them. What do you think is going to happen in Ukraine if we turn our back on them and Russia takes over and creates an entire nation of bitter, angry, beaten down Ukrainians? You're going to see terrorism, global terrorism, on a level that is unprecedented. Because those people are going to hate everything the West stands for after that. They're going to feel like they were the most backstabbed and betrayed in history. And they're going to take it out on everybody, not them. That's coming. Potentially.
Yeah,
potentially.
That's my fear of arming them.
Well, no, see, that's the thing. You're saying
over-arming them.
Your fear is arming them, they still lose, and Russia gets all our tech.
No, or them, either one. Because like I said, we armed Afghanistan before, then got turned on.
Yes.
So why wouldn't the same thing happen with the Ukraine? Now there's two different outcomes. Russia could win and take those munitions and artillery pieces and whatever the fuck, or Ukraine can hate us for not getting more involved and still have some leftover shit and use it against us. Blah blah blah.
I'll present to you option 3. What if they were allowed into NATO first? Then,
well, if they were allowed into NATO, all their shit would have to be okay. I'm listening.
So if they were allowed into NATO first, and during the process of admission, they were invaded and they lost, we would have a very difficult situation on our hands. We would have to install a no-fly zone because they would be a applicant in potentia, right? Like we accepted them, which means they could fly the planes in and the jets and the supplies and put the no-fly zone in. And that would create a new Cold War. However, the Donbass region would probably stay in Russian hands. Some of the tech, like you were concerned about, would probably be turned over to the Russians. However, a lot of the tech we've been sending over, it's not our frontline stuff. Sure, okay, the Javelins and the Tomahawks and things like that are, but like the actual delivery system hardware, we're not sending them F-35s. We're not sending them F-22s. We're not sending them B-52s. We're not sending them those things. We're sending them kinetic munitions.
And I hear what you're saying, but I would also argue we didn't give Iran our top of the line shit. We didn't give Afghanistan our top of the line shit, you know?
Yeah. But that's the thing though. They got the stuff that wasn't, and they sort of made do with the best that they could with what they had, but they didn't become a militant nation that became a conquering nation all across the land around them. So it's
No, right,
like,
but they got to start from that shit though.
oh, I mean, it's like we arm them, sure, but they're still contained. I mean,
Right.
think about the gift that, Captain Sundowner left in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they've got a whole fucking air force now, don't they? They've got my goddamn MRAP. Where the fuck is my MRAP? You remember I kept saying
Probably,
that shit?
probably in Mexico, because they're selling a whole bunch to Mexico.
Yes, they are, aren't they?
You know what I found out later, and I didn't even know this because I was looking at Mexican news,
Huh.
that magically the cartel possesses nods.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But what generation,
They
though?
got the new ones, the
Aw.
PVS-13s or something.
The four lens things that I like?
Yeah,
Huh.
yes. Because look, watch. Okay, so I was like, cartels ambushed. They killed the Ferales and the Marines killed the cartel, and it had a monkey. That's how they knew there was a cartels, because they had a
They
monkey.
had a monkey with a
And
plate carrier on. I saw that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That
and
was
then
just
the
a little beer koozie thing like I made for my Yorkies.
yeah, yeah. So and then by the way, it had plates in it.
Jesus.
So yes. So okay, in retaliation,
License plates.
I don't know,
I'm
but
kidding.
in retaliation, they were swarmed at one of the local police departments in the middle of the night when there was no lights.
I'll tell you what, we can't laugh at monkeys being employed like that, though. I think it was Thailand. There's a huge stink going on in Thailand right now from animal rights activists because, now get this, they have trained monkeys to farm coffee beans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
now people are like, that's slave labor and you're making them work 18-hour days and you took the monkeys away from their family. And I'm like, do you know how close to racist you're about to sound?
yeah, right.
I was like,
But
y'all better choose your words real carefully right now.
well, the thing is, how I knew that they were using nods is because one of them were killed, right? And they had those four lens nods.
Man, I can't even have those. Actually, I think you can now.
And, and the sad part is that they're trying to trace it
Like
back.
grand.
I'm
They're
just a
trying to trace it
porno,
back,
but
and they found out it came from Afghanistan.
not surprised. I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised. All right, we got to move on because that BLTQIA thing just, yeah, we'll rebuild your country, but you got to let gays marry. It's like, okay, it's a dumb stipulation, but whatever,
But
like
that begs the question though too, like who's next? There's so many countries that follow the same thought as
it's the
Ukraine
next
does.
country that wants to join NATO, obviously. See, NATO's gonna push this agenda by converting every applicant nation one at
Ah,
a time. You want to join the boys club? Cool. Boys have to be able to marry other boys then in your country.
and boys can be girls.
Yeah.
And,
It's
yeah.
like,
All
Hey, we're not biologists.
oh yeah,
right.
sorry, our mistake. We're not biologists. That's right.
Yeah.
Which means we can all be Supreme Court justices. All right, we're on to Tuesday now because fuck, it's gonna be a 3-hour show. Damn you all.
Indeed.
Some of you are going to probably catch parts of this on the replay. I fully understand that. I'm not upset if you drop out and watch the rest later because I wouldn't sit through 3 hours either if I was you. I'd probably set my sleep timer and fall asleep halfway through and catch the rest tomorrow. Anyway, Tuesday, July 5th, day 132, because we're going to get through this shit because Mikey's got to go to sleep soon. It's almost midnight for him. This picture's got to go and this picture's got to go up. And story reads, Ukraine on, even though it's Tuesday, it's a post facto story, so it's going to say Monday in it. Ukraine on Monday announced a $750 billion plan to rebuild the war-torn nation, and President Vladimir Zelensky urged the international community to join, quote, the greatest contribution to the maintenance of global peace. Zelensky argued that Ukraine's recovery was vital. Wait a minute. Time the fuck out. The EU, in the last story, committed $104 billion, but gays have to marry. Ukraine announced that they already have a 750 billion rebuild plan. So, fuck your 104 billion, right? Just saying. Anyway, Zelensky argued that Ukraine's recovery was vital not only for Ukrainians, but for the preservation of democracies worldwide. The reconstruction of Ukraine is not a local project. It is not a project of one nation, but a common task of the entire democratic world. All countries who can say that they are civilized, he said during a Ukrainian recovery conference in Switzerland. Restoring Ukraine means restoring the principles of life, the space of life, and everything that makes humans human. This guy is really good at speeches, by the way. Better than Obama, I think, because actually he writes his own shit. Anyway, rebuilding Ukraine has already begun in certain areas where Russian forces have withdrawn as Kyiv looks to repair government buildings, hospitals, schools, housing, and basic infrastructure like water and gas pipes. But even as Ukraine looks to repair devastated areas abandoned by Russian forces, Moscow continues its deadly campaign in eastern Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed victory over the Luhansk region on Monday after more than 4 months of intense fighting. Russian forces are now looking to exert dominance over Donetsk, the south of Luhansk, in the Donbass region. Moscow in April claimed its goal in its, quote, special military operation is to gain full control over eastern and southern Ukraine, but Ukrainian officials have warned that they believe Russia will make another attempt at Kyiv. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal presented a $750 billion recovery plan that would address the immediate... Shmyhal. It almost looks like Smeagol. Anyway, presented a $750 billion recovery plan that would address the immediate needs of the country with additional plans to follow based on longer-term requirements. Shmyhal said a major source of the plan's funding should come from the, quote, confiscated assets of Russia and its oligarchs. The Russian authorities unleashed this bloody war. They caused the massive destruction, and they should be held accountable for it. Who got the boat that we brought over from one of those oligarchs that ended up in Hawaii? Who ended up with that boat? Because where's my boat? I didn't get a MRAP, so now I want an oligarch boat. It's only fair, right? Anyway.
Have to go seize one for yourself.
Yeah, I think so. So tomorrow, Jimmy James and I are going to go over to Ukraine, and we're going to pick up a T-92 tank and a Russian yacht and a harem full of hot Ukrainian women. See ya! No, anyway.
I'm going to.
You want to come too? Okay.
Yes.
Is there another room for a Mexican?
Yes, we got room for all of you, because we're going to be like Captain America's original team, where we had one from every nation.
Oh, shit. Representing Mexico? Oh, no.
I think just for fun, we're going to give Jimmy the shotgun and the English bowler hat.
Ooh.
But you got to grow mutton chops.
He can do it.
I could do it.
Nice.
I'm not patchy.
Nice. All right. Let's see. The vice president of... Oh, wait, sorry. Did I read that already? Yeah. Vice President of the European Union's executive branch, Valdis Dombrovskis. Okay. Said that there would be legal obstacles to using confiscated Russian assets, as it would involve criminal law. No, it's called what's that thing? Something of war, where you get to take over. It's like war trophies. Spoils of war. That's what it is. But we think it's important that according to the principle of aggressor pays, it's also Russia's assets which are directed to the reconstruction of Ukraine, he added. So, yeah, spoils of war. I mean, you started this shit, you're paying for it. End of story. Like, if we have to foreclose 750 miles of the Russian border inland, which swallows up Moscow and everything, and push all you guys back into the middle of the country of Asia, the continent of Asia, and make you guys have to actually use that land north of Mongolia, so be it. You're going to pay. You going to pay what you owe. You going to pay. I was about to get into some Uncle Ruckus, but that would be extremely racist. Somebody brought it up earlier today, and I was just like, "You's about to have a, you know, a moment.
A
You
moment.
you gonna have a moment." Anyway, wow, I got through that story, and I can get into the next one already. Nice. Here we go.
You know, there's only one way to get rid of a moment.
Da-da. Can't talk
Jail.
about that. We can't talk about that. Anyway, this next
I
picture.
mean, I can start the shenanigans.
No, this next picture that I've got up here. Man, that dude's got a poker face. Like I'm just waiting for him to tap the table. Like call. He's pushing all in, right?
It's like,
Anyway,
hit.
Ukrainian President Zelensky looked to temper escalating tensions with his northern neighbor Tuesday and said Belarus's involvement in Russia could be avoided. We believe that Belarus will not get involved in this war. There are and will be provocations, he said during a roundtable, according to Interfax. Now, I'm going to preface this story here because the time this story was written until the time that the next story I'm about to tell you about changes the tone of this completely. But at the time that this was written, he said, I don't think that they're going to get involved in this war, just so you know. There are a lot of people of different caliber who have brought suffering to Ukraine. We understand that this is not the decision of all of the Belarusian people, he added. Zelensky's comments came as tensions between Kyiv and Minsk have escalated after Russian missiles were fired at western and northern Ukrainian targets last month from within Belarus's borders. Ukraine has accused Russia of attempting to draw Belarus into the war as intense fighting continues for more than 4 months after Russian President Putin ordered the invasion. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has largely been able to keep his country out of any direct involvement in the war, though he faced international ire earlier this year when he allowed Moscow to build up its forces along Belarus's shared border with Ukraine in the lead up to the invasion. Sidebar. He did allow that. One would argue that Moldova did as well. And yes, I did have the picture saying, yes, we're poor, please leave us the fuck alone. But the fact of the matter is 80% of Moldova's IT industry left the country in the last 5 years. Their economy is really in shambles. When I say that they're poor, I'm not trying to be mean. They really are in dire straits, economically speaking. So when the Russians came in and said, we're going to park 9,000 troops in this country, and they're going to step across your border into Ukraine for an invasion, stay out of our way or we're going to kill you too, the Moldovans were like, we're poor, just don't break the China. Leave us the fuck alone. Just, you stay over there and just leave. Because as soon as they stepped across the border, the Moldovans immediately told Ukraine, send us your refugees, we'll gladly take them in. We're sorry that we staged this. We had no choice. So it was like they were tied up behind this. Belarus, on the other hand, no. Fuck them. They willingly said, no, buddy, come on in. Set up all you want. We love you, Russians.
Yeah, that made me colonel.
That's why I said that Belarus, them bitches are going to have a fucking reckoning. Like, they don't know what's coming. Because the fact of the matter is right now Putin is playing Lukashenko like a fiddle. He's like, yeah, buddy, it's great, right? You're going to help us because you like Russia and everything's what's wonderful. And we won't kill you because you're going to let us kill them. And all of a sudden, Lukashenko's like, so where do I fit in this new Russian order? And Putin's like, we discuss that later. So what ends up happening? Let's say Russia wins. Russia takes over Ukraine. Russia then all of a sudden says Belarus no longer exists. No, you're Russia too. Lukashenko's like, what? Yeah, didn't you see the contract? Look at the bottom of the screen. What? I help Russia. Russia take Belarus. No Belarusians killed. I didn't agree to this. Anyway.
Well,
It's too late now.
you're in Russian army now.
Yeah, it's like, oops, shit happens, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. Another thing coming. They're helping
Yeah.
the Russians because they think that they're going to, like, Lukashenko thinks he's going to have a position in the new Russian order.
Mm-mm.
He is going to sell out his country and hand it to Russia on a plate. Russia gets to take it over. Belarus ceases to exist as a sovereign nation.
Hmm.
Lukashenko gets executed for treason, but it's too
By
late
his
for the
own
rest of the
people.
people. Yeah, but it's too late for his people because now they're Russians. Oops.
Oops.
That's what I'm saying. Them fuckers have another thing coming, which is why the
Welcome
exiled
back to
opposition
Soviet
leader.
Union.
Well, that's why the exiled opposition leader needs to do something about it, because
Mm.
this is ripe for a civil war of sorts within Belarus. The only problem is if she
that would
does
be
it,
the icing on the cake.
if she does it,
Oh,
she will be annihilated. That person, the exiled one, if she has a force that can do that, they will be annihilated. Because the fact of the matter is, NATO will not help her. The EU will not help her. Russia will help Belarus crush her.
well, someone needs to send a strike team into Russia to get Navalny out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, agreed.
Navalny's missing.
No, he's in prison.
He's in prison.
No, no, no,
There's an
no.
Interpol lawyer that meets with him, I think, once a week.
Yeah.
Really?
He-
Because I heard on news where they haven't been meeting and he's missing and they don't know nothing about his whereabouts. They contacted the area, the prison he was
Find a
in,
source.
and they have,
Find a
huh?
source. Find a source that's recent within 7 days and screen share it, and I'll post it so we can all see it. But I would be
Okay.
interested in seeing that. Yeah, you work on that because I want to see it. If that's pretty surprising. But it's surprising and not surprising, I guess. Anyway, where did I
I was
leave
gonna say
off?
Brittany Griner. Is anyone gonna go get her?
No,
No, no one cares about her.
no, it's
W.
not that. It's not that. Okay, the reason that
Well,
they're
I
not
don't.
going to save her without well, the reason that our government's not going to save her is very simple.
Mm,
The
Yeah,
prisoner
yeah.
exchange is not worth it. Okay, the way that Biden has to look at this, as cold blooded as it sounds, is a female basketball player who broke another nation's laws is being exchanged to us for essentially Russia's deadliest arms dealer that they want from us in exchange. Now, I jokingly said this, but shit, what was the name of that Indian again, Mike?
Which Indian?
The one that Johnny Depp played in
Tonto.
Tonto. Yeah. You know, in The Lone Ranger, Tonto used to have this line when he talked to Armie Hammer and he goes, "This is bad trade." That's exactly what that means. You don't
Yeah,
trade a basketball player who broke another nation's laws for one of the most deadly arms dealers in Russia's history. I'm sorry,
it's just
that's stupid.
that's just a case of Russia thinks that they have more than what they really got.
But I mean, that's just stupid, right? Like they named the person they want in exchange for her.
Yeah,
That would be like, okay, here's the deal. I will give you this Lada, and you will send me the USS Nimitz. That's what he's asking for. It's like,
yeah,
if you take that, somebody better march into Washington and drag Biden out by his toes and hang him in front of everybody. Like, if he
yeah,
takes that deal, you better fucking find a reason to impeach his ass. Like,
yeah.
I
Like
don't care if you're a Democrat. You find a reason.
a WNBA player isn't even worth like a local pimp, a local Russian pimp or something like that.
I ain't gonna get into that. I ain't
Do you
getting into
guys
that.
have any bread thieves
I,
over there?
I ain't getting into that. I just thought it was kind of funny that she was given like like most of her wardrobe because all the pictures that they showed of her, she was wearing like regular street clothes. So I thought that was interesting.
Well,
But
it's all like sports gear, so the Russians think that because don't Russian like they all dress in like Adidas
well,
tracksuits and
yeah,
shit
don't
like
you think
that.
they would have put her in one?
Yeah. Well, she's got Nike. She's got a deal going.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. Maybe that's why they really got her because they were like, you're not carrying our national brand, you know.
There's one thing the Russians never do is cross promote.
All right, where did I leave off in this story? Damn it.
My bad, man.
Oh,
No, it's
sorry,
cool. It's
getting
cool.
in a lead
You found it?
in a lead way. Well, there has nothing been known. There's no news about it up to June 14th that says that his lawyer went in to ask where Navalny is, and they
Yeah.
responded saying no, we don't know who Navalny is. He's not a prisoner here.
At the same
I
prison
sent you.
that they were going to for weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Yes.
was
Wow.
transferred to a
Yeah, I
maximum
sent you
security
the link.
prison as
There's
his verdict.
So he is
yeah.
missing.
Yes, he is missing.
Huh.
100%. He is missing. They don't know what prison his lawyer investigated where prison he's been transferred to. There's no records of transfer. There's no records of him being at the prison that he's been going for months. And they rotated the guards.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
put I
Oh,
because he's
he's
not in a
dead.
prison.
He's
Hold on.
dead.
Yeah, he's part of a Lotta front bumper right next to Jimmy Hoffa
He's dead.
by now.
He's in a barrel of acid.
Yeah.
Hold on, Jaime. Jaime, I found something.
uh-huh. That's why I said
June,
the only thing I saw was June 14th.
June 28th. He appears in
Uh-huh.
Russia in court via video link.
June
Okay.
28th.
After prison transfer.
Okay, so that's like
Okay.
a little over two.
He was transferred to a maximum security prison.
Okay, so it's been like a week
Okay.
and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I said the only thing I could find that him being missing was June 14th.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's
All right.
still alive tentatively.
Anyway, where did I leave off on this story now? Damn it. Oh, okay. Belarus has served as a home base for Russian troops following their withdrawal from the northern Ukraine in March. That's where I left off. Zelensky called on the Belarusian people to reject Minsk's involvement in the war to stop the conflict from escalating further. We believe that the Belarusian people should do everything not to get involved in this war, he said. The responsibility should be on people who see what is happening. We cannot remain silent and say that not we, but it is that the Russian Federation is firing those shots from our territory, Zelensky says. But Lukashenko's unwavering support for Putin could limit the ability of Belarusians' ability to affect the outcome. They didn't write that properly. I didn't write that properly. Sorry. Lukashenko has increasingly relied on Putin following his help to contain the mass protests that broke out after his 2020 re-election, which many believed was rigged. Where have we heard that situation before?
We can't say.
Right. The Belarusian president renewed his support for the Kremlin on Sunday when he said Minsk has backed Moscow's invasion of Ukraine from the very first day. Today we're being criticized for being the only country in the world to support Russia in its fight against Nazism. Well, you just lost that argument because you just broke Godwin's law. We support and will continue to support Russia. Do you support the Wagner Group, I wonder? Anyway, and to those who criticize us, do they not know that we have such a close union with the Russian Federation, he added. We have practically a unified army. We will remain together with fraternal Russia. This dude is such a bitch to Vladimir Putin. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Lukashenko, but he's a good foot taller than Putin. And he's probably got an extra 200 pounds on him. This guy is a bear. He could prison dominate Putin if he wanted to. And yet, he's the one getting the prison perch snatched. What the fuck? Anyway, yeah, what a little bitch. What a giant bitch, I should say. Anyway, moving on, because I hate to tell you this, but I'm only halfway through the stories for the day. Thanks, guys. Anyway, hey, as long as you're staying up, I'm staying up. Fuck it.
Who's the one that keeps getting sidetracked?
Y'all. I just run with it, though.
I blame Jaime. It's his
Wait,
fault.
that makes y'all enablers. Anyway. All right, we're moving on. It's Wednesday, July 6th. We made it to July 6th.
Yay!
The day that James Caan died.
Aww.
Damn. Sweden and Finland. Oh, I gotta put the picture up. Sorry. I called this picture, "Welcome to the party, pal." When you see the picture, you'll understand what I mean. Sweden and Finland inched closer to joining NATO on Tuesday as ambassadors for all 30 member nations signed accession protocols. for the two Nordic states to join the alliance. This is truly a historic moment for Finland, for Sweden, for NATO, and for our shared security. NATO Secretary General and Der Spiegel underwear model Jens Stoltenberg said of the alliance's most significant expansion in decades. The legislatures for each individual country must now approve Sweden and Finland's bids, a process that could take several months. Canada was the first country out of the gates to ratify the accession protocols, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calling for allies to, quote, move swiftly to complete their ratification process to limit opportunities for interference by adversaries. Yeah, just like you did for Ukraine, right? Sweden and Finland applied for membership in May. But their entry appeared to hit a snag when Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan demanded that the countries extradite members of a Kurdish rebel group that Turkey considers terrorists. So, just a quick side note, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It didn't take them 4 months to join. It took them 2. 2! Ukraine took 8 years and they're still not in. These two got in 2 months, 8 weeks.
Their check cleared faster. That's what that was.
Clearly. Literally. Clearly. Yeah. Anyway. We will honor the memorandum fully. There is, of course, no lists or anything like that in the memorandum. But what we will do is to have better cooperation when it comes to terrorists. This came from Swedish Foreign Minister Ann Linde. Erdogan warned that after the agreement was signed that Turkey's parliament will not approve the accession protocols unless the Nordic nations fulfill their duties, which means hand us the Kurds or we'll back out of the deal, obviously. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February spurred the historically neutral Sweden and Finland to apply for NATO membership. If approved, Russia's border with NATO countries would more than double. 8 weeks. 8 weeks. They got approved in half the time that this war room and the war in it has gone on. 8 weeks. Ukraine, 8 years, still not in. Food for thought. Think about that. Think about that if you're another nation that wants to join NATO.
How long did it take them to get rid of their nukes from that 8 years? You know, there might be a lot of variables.
No, that's the thing.
They still had to meet their criteria.
They knew they were on the verge of being invaded back in 2014. They applied for NATO membership back in 2014. NATO said you have to disarm the remainder of the Russian nuclear arsenal in your country to be considered for entry. They disarmed, and I think it was like a month or 6 weeks after the disarmament, Russia invaded. So they got rid of that shit lickety split because they saw the wood for the trees. They saw what was coming around the corner. So they were like, okay, you give us that assurance, we'll do this right now. We'll work 24-hour shifts if we have to. It was done. Then they got invaded.
Well, that was kind of
got taken over.
If Russia knew the time frames of all that and everything, that was kind of smart on their behalf because then NATO couldn't get involved.
Yeah,
because they weren't accepted yet, so they couldn't get involved.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Because they basically are good. They're quick. Russians are quick studies to things like this. They saw they know what the doctrine is and the rules are because they're public information. And they also know that NATO slow walks everything. So they knew that they had time to do what they had to do. So what did they do? They didn't make the whole land invasion. They jumped across that little peninsula to take Crimea, which was the biggest naval port of the country. They took the big one. They took the big bite right out of the center. Like if you look at the shape of Ukraine, right? Let me take this picture out of here. Crimea is literally the nutsack of the country. It's right in the middle. And Russia just reached up under like jaws and just snapped that sack right out from under them.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but that started that invasion, and then they knew that NATO couldn't get involved.
Yeah. By doctrine, you're right. And then Ukraine's just sitting there going, "What the fuck?" And then Russia kind of just backed off. They were like, "No, we got those we came for." They wanted the port more than anything.
Oh yeah.
But they were like, we got what we came for. Which took away a gigantic port from Ukraine. And it put a Russian core of spies, basically, right in the middle of the country, in the south, on the south coast. I mean, like, if you look at Crimea, they go straight north. They can cleave right up the middle of the country and spread like virus in either direction. So, logistically speaking, that was a brilliant seizure of land. Logistically speaking, that was brilliant. Like, that was probably what got General Shoigu his current position, actually. Like, if he was the guy that did that invasion, or if that was his plan, that's why he's the #2 military guy in charge in Russia now. He's the
Yeah.
last story of the day, by the way.
Well, yeah. Well, like I was saying though, too. Like I was saying that this is like Putin's last hurrah, but he still has thought into the. He wants to win. He's fighting to win still.
Right, it's just he won't be around to see the fruits of his labors. He's just
No.
legacy building for the history
He
books.
wants. Yeah, you're right. He wants to be the guy that did that.
Yeah, that's all it
Yeah.
is. But see, the question then becomes, who is he handing it off to? Because I seriously doubt it's going to be Medvedev. I mean, they've been trading back and forth who's president and who's prime minister like musical fucking chairs for the last 20 years. But who's next? And I
Putin don't
think
got kids or nothing like that. He doesn't have a successor ready to go.
no. And see, the funny thing is I think the answer is they're not saying it out loud who's next because that keeps that bitch Lukashenko thinking that he might be next, and he won't be. They're just using him. He's a puppet.
Oh yeah.
The Belarusian president's a puppet to this. But
Of
because they're
course.
not saying who's taking over, he thinks, so you're saying there's a chance. And you know exactly who that clip,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
with a
yeah.
broken tooth and a fucking ball haircut. Yeah, that's what that is. Anyway, moving on. And I have a picture of Putin, surprisingly enough. Because, you know, before this whole war thing, honestly, I did admire the guy as like a world leader. Dude was a badass. Now he's just an asshole. Anyway.
Yeah, but he's still his military strategy is still on point though for right now. It seems
I don't
like.
think so. I don't think so. This was supposed to be a 3-day operation. It's been going on for 131 days at this point.
He underestimated it. He look at how they look at they look at them as a group of pores, nobodies. They probably thought it was just going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. It's like, it's either his strategy. No, his strategy did fail. Let's be honest. I mean, day one, he went straight after the capital. He thought if he snapped the jugular, the country would collapse.
Yeah.
Like, if you remember
Cut
at the
off the
beginning
head.
of this war, exactly, at the beginning of this war, the
Mhm.
buzzwords was decapitating the central government. Remember they were saying that for days? Decapitating the central government? He failed horribly. He had to retreat. That's embarrassing. And then he had to do an end around. And the whole world watched it. It's like, wait a minute, he's out of the country right now. This is the time where you send in every piece of supply you can get because he's too busy running with his tail between his legs. Did they do it? No. They just watched him go back up into Belarus. They watched him hang out and lick his wounds. They watched that whole column go all the way around back to Russia and come all the way back in to the Donbass. And it's like the whole time they were moving, we're like, they're coming. They're nah. They're like,
you
they're
guys.
they were like, yeah, Ukraine's like, you guys, are you fucking blind? Look, they're coming. They're right over there. They're coming down this way. They're going to enter right here. And NATO is just like, nah, he's not going to enter again. I mean, look how bad he lost up there. He's not coming in. You guys are overreacting. Come on, you'll be fine. Boom, came in anyway. NATO's just like, oh, well, we got that wrong. Let's go let Sweden in.
Yeah, sorry, but it's against the
Fuckers.
rules to help you now. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Anyway, all right, so
Lovely
moving on. Recent comments from Russian President Vladimir Putin amount to little more than posturing after a disastrous campaign in Ukraine. Huh? See, he thought he was doing well. But any comment from a world leader with a nuclear
Leader.
arsenal, well, yeah, should be taken seriously, military experts were quoted saying. I think when Putin says stuff like this, all he does is really kind of reinforced the point that Russia's not really responding to a legitimate external threat. This came from James Carafano. He's the vice president of the Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. If you don't know who the Heritage Foundation is, they're the ones who write the list of recommendations for Supreme Court justices. Just a thought. They're not just anybody. Anyway. Oh, I lost Jaime. Anyway.
Oh
Finland.
no. Anyways,
It was, oh no. No, I noticed it, that's all. Anyway, Finland and Sweden reversed historically neutral positions following Russia's invasion in Ukraine, explaining that the security landscape in Europe had changed. Turkey said it would not support either country's bid to join the alliance, which would effectively block their entry since any applicant requires full support from native members. But Turkey on Tuesday said it would now support the bids after reaching, quote, an agreement that paves the way for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. Putin on Wednesday said that Sweden and Finland could go ahead and join NATO, but warned that Russia would respond in kind if either country hosted the alliance military forces or infrastructure. I'm not sure I would read anything strategic into that, because on its face, it's a completely ridiculous statement, Carafano said. I don't think you can really read anything strategic into it. Carafano explained that establishing any such infrastructure would take months or even years to complete, and the two countries already cooperate with NATO allies, even if they aren't current members. Finland and Sweden already cooperate and integrate its stuff with the US military, so the notion that any NATO member would allow an outsider like Russia to dictate what kind of deployment infrastructure could be in a NATO country is just laughable on its face. Carafano suggested that Putin could have intended the comments sarcastically, but that only Putin knows what Putin is going to do. Doesn't that sound like Russians doing Russian things? It's the same thing, right? The guy's pretty much a dictator,
well,
and he has an arsenal of nuclear weapons and a military. So I would never say, oh, geez, he'll never do that.
if we're gonna use weird
You put-
sayings
yeah,
like
nothing.
that, then why don't we just say Putin is as Putin does?
Right. Anyway.
But you don't put nothing past them, though. They said that he says there's no strategy on the face of it, but isn't the threat strategy enough for you to go, fuck, hey, you know what? That's enough for me to.
Well, it's the
Set
deterrent
something
that
to
makes
action.
people go, oh, we can't do that because that'll provoke them. It's like,
Yeah.
they're the attacker, stupid.
Yeah.
The attackers, I ain't worried about provoking them.
Anyway, this guy Carafano, he starts getting kind of off the cuff here. He's like, the guy's pretty much a dictator, and he has an arsenal of nuclear weapons and a military. So I would never say, oh, geez, he'll never do that. But if you look at this consistent pattern of Russian behavior, where they have been threatening all kinds of things, everything from implying nuclear exchanges to military activity, in the end, all the Russians have ever done is just annoy everyone. Like, I like this guy's cynicism. James Anderson.
Yeah, but he's wiping it. He's brushing it off like it's not a threat.
Because I think the reason he's doing that is because Putin is the one doing all the provocation, and nobody's getting punches back in. This is our version of getting our punch back in.
Yeah.
Basically saying, look, you're running your mouth, so we're calling you out. Because if you don't, then he just keeps getting more and more brazen and more confident in what he can get away with. So you got to smack him across the mouth every once in a while with shit like this. You just have to.
but then you're provoking an insane, dying
That's
dictator with control of a
That's
fucking.
fine. That's fine. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at it like this. If you don't call his bluff, then what he's going to do is a guarantee. If you call his bluff, you make him question, am I doing this right? Because at the end of the day, he still has to understand the concept of mutually assured destruction. Only a true madman would turn around and go, fuck it if they can't take a joke. I know that's a quote from a movie,
Yeah.
and I knew you would understand exactly what I mean by that. But that's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody would do that. Because that would mean the destruction
You
of
make a
every
point.
single piece of his nation's history off the face of the earth. And it's like, no man's pride is worth destroying his entire country for it. I don't think so. Like,
No,
even,
that's not his end game here.
right,
That's it.
even he has sensibilities going, it's not worth the destruction of all my nation's heritage and history. Maybe his, but not his nation. Because if Russia got wiped off the face of the earth, then what did he gained? Nothing. And then also on the flip side of that, if the entire world was destroyed through mutually assured destruction, nobody gained anything. So what was the point of doing it all? Wiping out humanity? What was the point?
Chaos.
Well, yeah, there's some that are like that, but you know what I'm saying. It's like
We live in a
everybody
society.
everybody does something for a gain. And
Yeah.
it's like you gain nothing if everybody dies. So it's like, yeah, the nuclear deterrent is out there, but it's usually out there to stop the truly insane dictator.
Oh yeah.
He's being a fascist and he's being an asshole, but I
Well,
don't
he
think
wants
he
to
would
go down in
sacrifice his whole
a he,
country.
he, no, yeah, he wants to go down in a hero in his own weird kind of way. But yeah, he wants
There's
to be in the history.
nobody there to praise the hero if we're all dead. Like that's the
Right,
other thing.
exactly. And
So
yeah,
I
what'd
think,
you say earlier? Legacy, like that's exactly what he's going
yeah, he
for right
wants to
here.
be in the history books, but if all the books are burned, then he
Ain't no
gained
sense.
exactly
Can't
he gained
nobody
nothing.
read about you if everything's fucking eviscerated.
Yeah, it's like you can't read about me if you're all blind from the fucking nuclear fallout.
Three eyes and none of them work.
Exactly. Four arms and none of them can reach the dick, so it's like I can't jerk off. Damn it. Feel like a fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex. God damn. Bitch said pull my hair, couldn't even reach her. Fuck. Anyway, let's see. James Anderson, acting Undersecretary of Defense for Policy under President Trump, argued that Putin needs to save face after causing 2 neutral countries to join NATO alliances thanks to his invasion of Ukraine. The Russian people see, and he no doubt fears that they see, that his aggressive actions in Ukraine have driven historically neutral countries to seek membership in NATO. In a strategic sense, Putin's invasion has made Russia a whole lot less secure, not only because of the fact that the invasion didn't go well, but now NATO is growing at an exponential rate against him. That's kind of true. Anderson called Putin's recent comments efforts to reframe the course of the war and its outcomes, calling Sweden and Finland's efforts to join NATO strategically significant. All one has to do is look at the map to see that Sweden and Finland are in a geographically important position on the northern flank. It would become easier for NATO to operate in the Baltic Sea. It would also complicate, to an extent, Moscow's Arctic strategy, because we're going to start looking for oil up there soon, I bet. Within NATO, there's an east-west divide. You have countries that are closer to the border, including Poland and the Baltics, who more directly feel the threat of the Russian bear, he added.
Remember,
I think both
Poland's
Helsinki...
next after Ukraine.
What?
That's what the Russians said.
What?
He said Poland's next after the Ukraine.
Within NATO, there's an east-west divide. You have countries that are closer to the border, including Poland, the Baltics, who more directly feel the threat of the Russian bear. I think both Helsinki and Stockholm are doing this given what Russia has done in Ukraine and what they fear is Putin may do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
They want that NATO Article 5 guarantee, and who can blame them? It's kind of true. But I mean, why did we have to sacrifice Ukraine to see the writing on the wall? They warned us about this before the invasion even began. Everyone should have made preparations after that warning, but they didn't, did they? Because they're idiots. Because we're led by idiots.
And people are slow.
And, well, they are. Told you. Put me in charge. Promise, I'll fix all of it. Anyway, next story. I think it's still Wednesday. I called this one Brace for Impact. Yeah. And I believe that is the Ukrainian military there, gearing up. Russia's deadly war continues to rage in eastern and southern Ukraine, but Ukrainians in the north and west are now bracing for a new fight. Now, you remember that story about Belarus earlier? About how they're not going to get involved? That was the day before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ukrainians in the north and west are now bracing for a new fight as concerns mount that Belarus will launch a land invasion in mid-July. That would be in a week from today. Following Russia's attempts to take the capital city of Kyiv and its subsequent withdrawal from the north, Ukrainians have done their best to return to normal life. Anastasia Koval, a Ukrainian American who just returned from Lviv, said bars, restaurants, and shops reopened roughly a month after Moscow invaded in what Russian President Vladimir Putin dubbed his special military operation. The economy has to keep going. It's a very strange feeling. You have posts, you have soldiers walking around with rifles, there's sandbags, buildings are covered, monuments are covered. Definitely wartime around here, she says. Koval, who returned to the U.S. last week after retrieving her mother from Lviv, said air raid sirens went off 3 to 4 times a day while she was there. People have just adjusted, she said. It just got to the point where nobody's even reacting to them anymore. It's called desensitization, obviously. The largest European conflict since World War II, and there's growing chatter that Belarus will officially join the war and launch a ground invasion in mid-July. Last week, Russian missiles were fired at Ukrainian targets from within the Belarusian territory for the first time since the war began back in February. It remains unclear if Minsk will officially enter the war, but Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has repeatedly backed Putin and on Sunday told local media that he has supported Moscow's invasion of Ukraine from the very first day. Russia's renewed bombardment in northern and western Ukraine has increased in recent weeks despite repeated Russian claims that the military operation is aimed at taking full control over eastern and southern Ukraine. I don't know if Belarus is going to actually invade or if it's just a scare tactic, Koval said, arguing that it could be a ploy to encourage Kyiv to move soldiers off its front lines, which would enable Russia to gain ground. Koval, who has family members on the front lines and elderly grandparents still in Lviv, is helping the war effort through a family-run nonprofit known as Evil Cannot Enter Heaven, a charity run by her father, Ihor Koval, which supplies Ukrainian troops with sorely needed equipment. So, as a side note here, a lot of the foreign aid that's coming from European countries and us goes to these smaller groups like this to be distributed at the local level. Just so you're aware. It's not all just military convoys, because obviously they're not allowed in that country, right? Because NATO doctrine. Which is kind of funny, because why do they care about NATO doctrine if they can't keep getting admitted into NATO? Just a thought. Anyway, let's see. Koval's father was born in Ukraine and served in the Soviet Army prior to its dissolution in 1992. He later moved to the U.S. to raise his family. He has aided the Ukrainian armed forces since Russia's 2014 invasion and uses his contacts on the ground to get frontline fighters equipments like helmets. Here's your helmet. Here's some bulletproof vests. Water filters, boots, tourniquet kits, and other medical supplies.
And night vision.
Well,
and night vision.
You know me and the here's your helmets and bulletproof vests. So anyway.
Remember, they said they gave him night vision now, too.
Yeah. Koval explained that because of the scale of the war, the Ukrainian government is only able to provide roughly 65% of the basic ground needs. The other 35% have to be sourced through personal means or by organizational help. He feels it's his obligation, his duty, to help defend his land. He's far more valuable not behind a gun, but behind a desk because he speaks 4 languages fluently: Polish, Ukrainian, Russian, and English. That's a valuable asset right now, she says. He's coordinating so much logistically that he's literally suiting up boys who would otherwise be dead, she added. Western officials have championed Ukraine's ability to hold off Russian forces and stop what many believe Putin thought would be a swift operation. Despite the incremental gains Russia has made in the east and south, Koval said Ukrainians remain convinced that they will win in the end. It's barbaric. It's unseen on any level, she says, but added, "We're going to win. That is what everybody says. We're going to win. But then, at what cost?" The thing is, morale will always beat resources, she continues. Russia has got a lot of resources, and we have got a lot of morale. Koval acknowledged that Belarus entering the war would likely result in an even greater loss of life and infrastructure, but she repeated, morale always beats resources, every single time. You know, I'm starting to wonder, NATO doctrine says they can't join a nation already being invaded, right? What if a non-NATO nation decided that they wanted to assist Ukraine? What if Moldova, remember that country I said was too poor to fight or stop Russia? What if Moldova's military, if they have one, decided, enough, we're going to help them. This needs to end because the whole region is in turmoil. What if South Ossetia and Georgia, those satellite countries that Russia kept trying to beat down on, what if they decided they had enough? What if
Well-
every non-NATO nation in the area decided they've had enough? Who's going to
Well,
stop
the
them?
thing about Georgia is Georgia, they want to be part of the European Union.
Right. So the
They've
question
stated
is,
before.
what if
They're
all
not
these
happy with
non-NATO
Russia.
nations in the area jump in?
Does Russia have any allies? I'm really not too educated
No.
on.
No,
Yes.
well, no, just China
They have China, they have Syria,
and Belarus.
they have Belarus, they
So Belarus
have...
would be their closest
I
allies.
mean, probably if you add the surrogates, then you got Iran and North Korea.
I would
there, too.
suspect that they also have like Kazakhstan, or no, not Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan or whatever. A couple
I was
of
gonna
those other
say-
satellite countries.
They have.
I
all
was gonna
those
say Kazakhstan probably don't like them because their country's gonna be permanently radioactive.
Yeah.
Uzbekistan, maybe.
Yeah, stuff like that. I would suspect stuff like that.
But nobody is going to
Mongolia-
say, "Hey guys, let's go help Russia."
Like, exactly. Like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking that, what if Moldova did that? What if Georgia and South Ossetia did that? What if
Russia would be on their own.
Uzbekistan did that, you know?
They'd get boxed in and they'd be on their own.
Well, I'm saying, like, what if they all marched into Ukraine to bolster the numbers? Because if Belarus gets involved, Ukraine is fighting a two-front war.
Right,
They're
yeah.
already stretched thin. So it's
Well-
like, what would NATO do? They would go, oh, anyway.
Was
We
that
can-
true? Did you guys hear about them pulling fucking like lawyers and accountants and grocery store clerks and shit like that to go fight Russia? Like Russia was doing this to people?
Yes.
Okay,
Conscription.
and so is that a true thing?
Yes, conscription.
So they're definitely spread thin then if they're just taking civilians and giving them guns.
Well, it's not quite that simple. So, like, for instance, Russia dropped the age restrictions to join or to serve or to re-enlist if you were discharged. That was the first thing they did. Then they went into the separatist regions of the Donbass and they started conscripting people because they were like, hey, you like us, so you might as well fight for us or we kill you.
So is conscripting people just the same as pretty much
Drafting.
kidnapping them? Well,
Drafting.
yeah,
Yeah.
but against their will drafting, right? That's what I got out of
Drafting is always against your will. You don't willingly want to be drafted, do you?
it. Well, yeah, that is
Nobody
true.
ever reached in the mailbox and go, "Sweet, I got drafted." They're
That
like,
is-
"Fuck, I got drafted."
And I guess there's no running to Canada for Russia. Your average
I want to
Russian.
mention this. Belarus better, continue doing nothing. Otherwise, Lukashenko. Honestly, Latvia and Lithuania aren't very happy with Russia or Belarus these days,
Right, but they're
and they're NATO members.
aren't they NATO? Yeah, so you can't use them then. It has to be non-NATO members. And you know what?
But they're
I
former,
have to
former
believe-
satellite nations.
I have to believe that somewhere in the Pentagon, in a dark room, that vampire-looking motherfucker Antony Blinken. Actually, he's not a vampire. He looks like one of those fucking ghouls from 30 Days at Night with his black eyes. Anyway,
Wendigo.
Those are
yeah.
vampires.
Anyway, I have to believe that they have had this conversation already where he was like, what if we get CIA operatives to train Moldovans and South Ossetians and Georgians, and they go in and voluntarily bolster the numbers in Ukraine? Like, he has to have thought of that. I can't be that far ahead of the curve, right? There's just no way. There has to be people that are smarter than me thinking about these things. But if they're not,
These are the
then-
people that put fucking Biden in charge.
well, no, they were appointed by Biden.
Oh,
They're-
it's even worse.
The idiot voter base put him in charge. But you see what I'm saying? Like, if I'm that far ahead of the curve, then why haven't I been offered their job? Why haven't
They don't
why hasn't
care
Jimmy
about
been
you.
why hasn't Jimmy been appointed Secretary of Keeping It Real?
We ain't related to nobody. I'm
That's
not related to anybody that's in the federal government or started this country or anything like that. Are you?
yeah, okay, so I'm gonna give you another movie quote. You see, I can't do it because everybody knows me and everybody knows my face and everybody knows my name, but you are expendable. Exactly. I forgot what movie that was, but yeah, same thing.
But we are We are just the fucking cattle, pretty much. We're the
Which
cattle that
means
keeps
if
the
we do
farm
have a
going.
great idea, they would use us, and if it works, great. But if we fail, no big deal because nobody will remember our name.
Nah, that's even question. It would have to be a fucking great idea. It would have to be something
That
groundbreaking.
that wasn't a great idea.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I'm not down in your shit or anything like that. I'm just saying for them to listen, it would have to be something to be like, hey, hold on, we could really make some money off of this, or we could really fucking gain a grip on society with this, or so it would have to be something that they could benefit from. And there's
Okay,
only two things they want.
try this on for size for great idea then.
Hmm.
Using liberal logic.
Of course, it's the only way it'll get passed anyway.
So here we go. How about we let ourselves lose the midterms with just enough Republicans so they can impeach Captain Sundowner and Vice President Kneepads and let them go ahead and name Donald Trump Speaker of the House so he can become President of the United States by de facto. And then we just do what we did to him in the first term. And they'll come crawling back to us while
Mm,
Ukraine
They're not
turns
that
into a...
fucking smart.
You don't
I'm
think so?
not.
Nope.
Call me a fucking dickhead, but I'm kind of not looking forward to Trump being the lead Republican candidate for 2024.
Who would you put
I,
there?
ca- I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't follow politics like that anymore, like I
I
used
do.
to. But is there? So there's no one that. I mean, I don't know. All
I
politics
I
suck.
have a
No
theory.
one with a spine.
I have a theory.
What's that?
I like to think long game. So
Of course.
try this on for size. Franklin Delano Roosevelt arguably was the last great Democratic president the country ever had. Democrat president. But then again, one would also say that the Democratic Party at his time is not the Democratic Party of today.
It was totally different.
But regardless,
I would say Kennedy was.
well, yes, but then again, he didn't actually live long enough to see his programs and become a legacy. Because if he had 2 full terms, Vietnam would be a very different story. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we can't really give him that much credit. He had great ideas, yes. He got a man on the moon, yes. But that was just dreaming out loud, and then everything happened after that. Whereas Delano Roosevelt, FDR, he took the country and grabbed it by the scruff of its neck and said, we are getting out of this depression. You are all going to work because there's a war on, right? So one would argue that that was the last great Democrat of
Give me my
modern
money.
time. Oh my God, I just brain farted. Why did I bring that up? What did you just tell me before I brought that up? Jimmy,
What?
what did you
I'm
just
sorry,
say to me before I brought that up?
About what?
Before I brought up the president's thing.
Oh, that there's somebody else besides Trump.
Okay. Because of him dragging the country through World War II and pulling us out of the Great Depression and putting the entire nation back to work and being the last president who fought a war to victory, right? It's got to be said. He died before he got to see that victory, but he did take the nation in the direction which led us to a victory. Truman got the credit because he was the president after FDR died. The Constitutional Congress decided that they were going to put in a term limitation because they were like, whoa, 12 years plus a couple of... That was too much. I was like, wait a minute, that was an extenuating circumstance, and the people overwhelmingly put him there. What do you mean we have to term limit that? Remember how I always say term limits are kind of fucked up because good people get taken out too soon, but then bad people get to run along forever? We just need to make a better vetting process for that? Well, they installed a constitutional amendment to put in term limits, didn't they? And if you read that amendment, it says No president shall serve more than 2 terms or 10 years. 2 terms is 8 years. So how did this or 10 years thing come about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me draw it out for you. This is a midterm election, 2022. Let's say that the House and the Senate gets flipped by this red wave we're hearing about. As soon as that happens, Nancy Pelosi loses her job as Speaker of the House. Chuck Schumer loses his position as Senate Majority Leader. What then ends up happening is the new Senate Majority Leader, I believe, is back to Bulldog Cheeks, Mitch McConnell, right? But the House, theoretically, in the order of kingmakers, should go to Kevin McCarthy.
Yep.
But if the party is trying to go long game, big picture, they would ask Kevin McCarthy to step aside. Because there's a stipulation saying you do not have to be an active congressman to be Speaker of the House. They can nominate anybody they want to be Speaker of the House. So imagine this. House and Senate taken over by the Republicans. The House nominates Donald J. Trump as Speaker of the House. The argument is he would be better served as a congressman where there are no term limits. And he could do better work there as Speaker of the House instead of president. And it's a midterm anyway, so it's not the presidential election. So he has something to do, right? He goes in the House, and the first thing he does is, I'm going to raise articles of impeachment against Joseph R. Biden and Kamala Harris on the grounds of treason and national security threats to the people of the United States of America. Joe Biden, by declaring war on America's energy independence and putting tens of thousands of people out of work and being solely responsible for the worst recession in American history. And Kamala Harris, for dereliction of duty, for being the border czar that did nothing. So he concurrently gets both of them impeached in record time because he controls the House and the Senate together. They both get knocked out, and by the Succession Act, the Speaker of the House then becomes the President of the United States. He serves the years 2023 and 2024 as President of the United States without being elected as such, and then runs for his standard re-election in 24 and gains 4 more years. And if you do the math, that's 10 years. He would be the first president in history not only to be Grover Cleveland, a split-term president, but he would also be the first president in history after the passage of the amendment that set term limits and get the full 10 years. And you want to go real long game? He takes on Ron DeSantis or Greg Abbott as his vice president. And then that person succeeds as president for the next 8 years. And whoever wasn't picked as the vice president for Trump becomes the vice president for the next guy. Which means, let's say DeSantis becomes the president after Trump for 8 years. And he takes on Greg Abbott as vice president for 8 years. And then Abbott becomes president for 8 years. That's 26 years of conservative rule. That's long game. That's a possibility. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, but see, that's still just I'm just never gonna be on to Trump
You don't
just
have
because
to
of
be.
he's just because he's so close to the Clintons. He's always been
He
close to
was.
the Clintons. Oh, he's still come on, that didn't just change.
No, he doesn't hang out with Hillary.
Not anymore.
He never really did. He hung out with Bill.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
still, that was a package deal, though.
Yeah, until they turned their back on him.
Yep.
They didn't. Yeah,
Remember,
but did
he
they or
flipped
was that?
parties because that party stabbed him in the back.
Yep.
You got to
Yeah.
remember,
Their
Trump
own.
originally ran as president of the United States. Like, what did he run on? He didn't run on policy. He ran on grabbing and putting his finger on the pulse of the anger of the average American person. That's how he got elected. He didn't win on policy.
Yeah,
He
of
won
course.
because he was the first president in history to make social media his bitch.
Yeah, well, 90% of the people will say, "Oh, I like him because he wasn't a politician and all that." Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm always suspect of something corrupt and crooked going on.
Well,
And
it
you
beats
know,
the
don't get me
alternative.
wrong.
Is
Here,
my suggestion.
he
Is
was a
it beats
successful
alternative?
guy. However, he got his money, whatever he did. But you
Well,
know,
okay.
you don't get
Let's look what
stuff
sprung
like that
from
without
his
checking the
presidency.
source.
What sprung from his presidency was America First, and the 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 liberal detractor would have you believe that America First is racist somehow,
Oh yeah,
whereas or isolationist. And people like me said America First shouldn't have been his talking point. It should have been his own political party. Because you can say America First as long as in the same breath you say, you can come and be one of us. Give us you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and you're destitute. We want you to be the bright eyed, optimistic people who leave countries that you can't succeed in and come succeed here. That's the
right.
premise of our immigration system. Come do it the right way. Come be one of us. Come bring your ingredient and put it in our stew. As long as you don't overpower the stew. Come be one of us. Be inclusive, right? But when you
Well,
do
also
foreign
you have
policy, you turn around and say, look, we know that we always help all of you guys around the world, but right now, we've got a lot of stuff to work on our own. So we're sorry, but we're going to pull foreign aid from all of you because we have to take care of ourselves. Because if we can't help ourselves, we can't help you. That's not isolationist. That's being a good leader for your country. There's nothing wrong with that. And yet the Democrats are constantly saying you're racist and sexist and isolationist. It's like, no, we're not. We have to take care of us before we can even think about taking care of anybody else. In that sense, having him around for 10 years and then DeSantis for 8 and Abbott for 8 sounds pretty fucking good to me. Because think about how many Supreme Court appointments that's going to be. 26 years of conservatism.
that's if their politics stay the same though.
Well, that's the other beauty of it, right? So Trump gave us America First. As a talking point, I thought it should be a party, but it didn't happen. But now it's a super PAC. And there are people who still believe, hey, we got to take care of us before we can take care of anyone else. He started that movement. He
Well, yeah,
started,
and I can't disagree that that's absolutely a good platform to run it. Well, not maybe not to run on, but like you're saying, that's a great platform.
right. But
But
you're saying you can't trust the guy. Don't trust the guy. Trust what the guy did for the party.
no, but that's the thing though, is that I don't trust the people above the guy. Like even that whole election, watching him and Hillary go at it, that completely took away my faith in independent parties or anything other than Democrat or
Oh,
Republican
yeah.
ever being in the
Agreed.
office.
Agreed. You know damn well I always say this is a one party country.
Oh
Because at the
yeah,
end of the day, they're still drinking together. And if you have three
still
parties,
rubber
it's still
elbow,
a
yeah.
Well, I said that, you can't have good government if it's this or that and nothing in between. And that's what a two-party system gives you. If you have a three-party system, it's still only a two-party system. Because at the end of the day, one this or that is going to convince them to see it one or the other way. So you still only have a two-party system that way. If you have a four-party system, it's still only a two-party system. Because one group is going to take one set, the other group's going to take the other set, and it's still this or that. So it has to be 5 or greater. It has to end up like Parliament in England. And then people will say, but all they do in Parliament is argue and no laws ever get passed. Well, there you go. That's the point. Government works best when it's in gridlock. That was something that G-Webs used to hammer into my head, and I didn't understand what it meant until I started seeing it that way. If you have Parliament, if you have 8, 10 different political platforms all in office, do you know how hard it is to get 10 different opinions to agree on one type of law? That means all the shitty laws never get passed because they'll never agree on it. And the only ones that do pass are unilaterally agreed on. That's what it means when it says party or government works best in gridlock, because only the truly obvious common sense stuff passes. Everything else gets argued to death and just dies on the vine. That's what we need. That's what we should have always had, and we don't have that. We've commercialized it, we've propagandized it, we've made it a corporate plaything. And it's one party. Because like I said, they talk a lot of shit, just like in the WWE. I'm gonna get you at WrestleMania, brother. And then 2 hours later, after the cameras are off, they're all fucking drinking and eating wings together on the tour bus.
You popping Adderall and lifting weights.
Exactly. And John Cena's banging the Undertaker's wife, and the Undertaker's banging fucking the Bella twins. You know, it's
Swap.
like, and then Vince McMahon is banging all of them,
Oh,
men
yeah.
and women.
Yeah, he don't care. With that
He
old
don't
new
give-
assault face too, he don't care.
Yeah, he don't give a fuck. He's like, this noodle's getting wet, or you're fired. Remember that? Anyway, I don't know what. That was a long ass tangent. I'm sorry, guys.
That was
All right.
partially my too. I'll
No
take
Let's-
the
more
blame.
of those.
Let's move on. Thursday. So we're almost done. Actually, I think this is the one that's got 3 stories in it, too. Thursday, July 7th, day 134. And if you guys are still watching in the audience, you hung in there.
God
Okay,
bless you.
this is a good one. Mariupol mass graves. And this is an updated picture. The site of a mass grave near the southern port city of Mariupol has doubled since May. Think about that. That's 39 days. It has doubled in size in 39 days. This followed the conclusion of Russia's brutal assault on the city earlier this year. According to a new satellite photo taken by California-based imaging company Planet Labs, I don't think that one's the Planet Labs picture, but there's another one. The site of a previously known mass grave in the village of Staryi Krim, located roughly 3 miles outside of Mariupol, has nearly doubled after a large equipment was brought in on June 29th to dig what appeared to be trenches. Mariupol city officials have estimated that some 15,000 people could be buried in these trenches. Each one, that is. First reported by Radio Liberty. Advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Petro Andrushenko, reportedly suggested that these new graves could be a result of Russian attempts to clear the rubble from fallen apartment buildings that were destroyed during Russia's brutal shelling campaign earlier this year. Andrushenko said that there could be as many as 100 bodies in each of these destroyed buildings as local residents got caught in the targeted missile strikes. The advisor said on Tuesday that Russia's emergency management services entered the village to begin clearing the rubble and found one basement that contained over 200 corpses. Andrushenko
Surprise,
said that
surprise.
Russian authorities have disagreed on who should be the ones to clear out the bodies found in these situations, and have ultimately left it up to Russian state funeral services, which reportedly charges families of the deceased for individual burials. The fight for Mariupol resulted in one of the most brutal bombing campaigns reported in Ukraine as Russian troops pummeled the city in an attempt to root out resistance forces. Mass grave sites have also been recorded in 2 other suburbs of Mariupol, including Manhush and Vinohradne, where thousands are also believed to have been buried in mass. In April, the Mariupol City Council said trenches had been dug outside of Manhush, roughly 12 miles from the port city, which were capable of holding 9,000 bodies. The occupiers dug new trenches and filled them with corpses every day through April, the Post said. Our sources report that in such graves, the bodies were placed and stacked several layers deep. The graves were estimated by satellite imagery company Maxar Technologies, and each one was over 1,000 feet in length, an area roughly the size of 3 football fields. A separate mass grave was reported in the village of Vinohradne, roughly 9 miles from Mariupol, but it remains unclear how many people are believed to be buried at this particular site. We think that the number of dead will be much higher than 20,000 because the number of graves continued to grow. Andrushenko told Radio Liberty, however, under the current conditions and the lack of access, it is impossible to realistically draw a conclusion to the actual number of victims. Basically, what they have to do is they've got these trenches, they can estimate based on the size of the trenches and how many bodies can fit. They had eyewitness accounts how tall the stacks or the rows were stacked before the dirt was placed on top of them, and then they take that measurement and estimate for every other piece of upturned earth the same size on a satellite view, and that's how they get a rough estimate until they can get in there, exhume the bodies, and basically count the skulls. Because, you know, rib cages and vertebrae, they can get shuffled around, but a skull is a unique thing. So it's like, it's easy just to count the skulls, essentially, which is going to be horrific. That's a part of the war that they don't talk about a lot. But yeah, they're stacking bodies. Not in a good way. Not that it's ever a good way, but they're stacking bodies. Moving on. This is more... Oh, Scott went to bed. Damn, this was a story that he would have loved. I call this one Old Leatherface. As you can see there. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has posted images Thursday of himself meeting U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal in Kyiv, saying that his country continues to count on the support of Congress for weaponry in its fight against Russia. During the meeting on the 134th day of the war, Zelensky, according to his office, called on senators to back the decision on providing Ukraine with modern air defense systems. Try some bullet bourbon. I have, Terry. It's jet fuely, but it definitely gets the job done. And it was used in a movie called Bullet to the Head with Sylvester Stallone. Sorry, I should have mentioned sidebar. Let's see. First of all, we appeal to you so that the Congress supports Ukraine in the matter of supplying modern air defense systems. The number one task for us today is for women with children to be able to return to Ukraine by September 1st so that the children can go to school, so that students do not have to leave and can go to universities, Zelensky added. It is very important for us to do two things: repair the schools, universities, and to have a powerful air defense. Zelensky also thanked the senators for the visit to our country and for the strong, tangible support from the United States in times of tremendous challenges related to the Russian aggression. His office said that parties separately touched upon the issue of increasing sanctions pressure on the aggressor state. Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal informed Volodymyr Zelensky about the work that they're carrying out in the state with the aim of recognizing the Russian Federation as a state sponsor of terrorism. This picture has actually something kind of interesting going on. Zelensky is the president of a nation under siege. The two senators you're looking at, Richard Blumenthal is a Democrat from Connecticut. Lindsey Graham is a Republican from South Carolina. And yet, they came together.
Don't
on
remind
this.
me.
Well, no, I mean, I still believe that Lindsey Graham, during the Trump administration, was truly Tigress of Gaul. I gained a lot of respect for that guy during when he was in the
I've
Senate
lost it
Judiciary
lately.
Committee. Because you don't see it from the outside like I do. That guy was on a tear. He was pissed.
He's
But-
not your representative.
No, and then again, like, I see things in my representative that probably I don't really approve of that you might like. But anyway. The thing is he went there, and he's still there, as far as I know, and he's working with Dick Blumenthal, of all people, who I don't like. But you know what? If those two can work together to actually come up with something useful for Zelensky, then so be it. But we don't know until they get back. So, now we've made it to Friday. Today. Well, at least for the next 8 minutes for me. It's already Saturday for Mike, but... Friday, July 8th, day 135. We made it, guys. We made it. And I've only got 2 stories for today, so we're almost done.
Duh.
Duh. And I got to put this asshole's face back up. That picture, I look at that picture of Putin, and I can see exactly what he looked like as a baby. You can tell.
Angry.
No, like, if you look on the YouTube side, you'll see the picture I'm talking about. Like, he's got the picture.
Oh yeah, it's got a little. Oh, look at a little adorable little Putin.
Like, he looks like,
Tall and pumpkin
that looks like
looking.
a baby's face all grown up, right?
Yeah,
Anyway,
give him his little binky.
yeah, give him a binky.
What was that one lady that did the if I was Putin's mother? If I was Putin's father, I'd give him a binky right now.
Yeah, I'd give him a 50 caliber binky.
Kill it before it grows.
Exactly. I'd send
Like
Deadpool back to,
father
you know,
back in the day, I would have used the coat hanger.
it's like, you know that thing where Deadpool went back and held an infant Adolf Hitler? I'm just saying.
Yeah, 2 seconds. I know we've been going on the side a lot, but would you guys go back and kill baby Hitler if it was like, fuck all the details, we don't got time for that. Just
No.
would you do it or no?
Nah, I'd have shot his dad.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
I-
His dad is the one that was solely responsible for ending Hitler's artistic career.
You will not be a faggot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, he didn't
All right.
like that. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
So this picture I captioned "Dick." Russian President Vladimir Putin accused the West of waging a proxy war in Ukraine on Thursday and said that the world would know the war is just the beginning. Nearly 5 months after launching the invasion, everybody should know that, largely speaking, we haven't even yet started anything in earnest, Putin told parliamentary leaders. I'm sorry, motherfucker, you lost 1,637 tanks. You're not going to do shit in earnest because you ain't got shit left.
Yeah, he's trying to say that was just the beginning, like
Yeah.
that was just to show you what might happen.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is after he's done losing all his T-72s and T-90s, is he's going to bring back, what, 100,000 T-34 tanks?
I believe Ukraine's response is, "Thank you. May I have another, please?"
You know what? If Putin rolls across Ukraine with 100,000 T-34s, I think we should send in 10 A-10 Warthogs and just eradicate the whole thing.
No. If he's using T-34s, we might as well send Shermans in.
No. Fucking no. A-10s. Brrr. Done. Brrr. Done. Because those are still running where the Shermans aren't. Anyway. Let's see, where did I leave off?
Okay, let's send Patton tanks in. Those are still running.
Oh, the course of history is unstoppable, and attempts by the collective West to enforce its version of the global order are doomed to fail. For the first time in weeks, Putin also claimed that Russia is willing to sit down for peace talks with Ukraine, warning that the longer it lasts, the more difficult it will be for them to make a deal with us. Ukraine has put up a fierce defense of its territory, backed up by billions worth of Western arms that the U.S. and allies have sent to repel Russian forces. Russia's overtures at peace talks, meanwhile, are likely empty gestures. U.S. officials have said this in recent weeks. We have not yet seen any genuine interest on the part of Vladimir Putin in engaging any kind of meaningful diplomatic initiative. This came from U.S. Secretary of State in 30 days of night, motherfucker, Antony Blinken. Mikhailo Podolyak, yes, I did write that in Cyrillic, an advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, listed Ukraine's conditions for peace on Sunday, including a ceasefire, the withdrawal of Russian troops, the return of kidnapped citizens, and other measures. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has shifted to the eastern Donbass in recent months after Putin's forces failed to take the capital city of Kyiv in the early days of the war. The Russian military claimed victory in the Luhansk province earlier this week and is conducting an offensive in the other Donbass province, Donetsk. That's a short story, by the way. You know, that thing about Zelensky listed Ukraine's conditions? Ceasefire, withdrawal of your troops, and return of citizens and other measures. Wasn't that from a movie too, Jimmy? It was like...
What was that?
Like, okay, so there's a peace talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Zelensky is going, okay, we'll settle for peace. Tell you what, you stop shooting at us, you take all your troops and get the fuck out of my country, and you return all the people you stole from us, and then maybe we'll consider peace. It seems like a plot in a movie
It
that I
does
heard
sound
one time.
familiar. I wanted to say Inglorious Bastard, but that ain't the scene I'm thinking of.
No, I'm
No.
sort of thinking of either 300, maybe
No, it wasn't.
300,
No, it wasn't 300.
because he freaking like really pissed off the Persian, remember?
He pissed off the Persian because he killed their messenger.
Yes.
That wasn't. That didn't. Yeah,
But
that
the
wasn't.
messenger made all the demands, remember?
Yeah,
And then what did he do? He killed him.
he kicked him down the fucking well.
Nothing. No, that later on in the
Or-
movie, there was another like offer, and he did something to that guy too. And that
I just
really,
remember.
really pissed off the Persian. Anyway,
That was. This is Sparta. That whole front kick. That's
That
what
was
kicked off
one.
everything.
yeah. And then the other one, the other thing like that with the deal, was it Troy? Maybe it was Troy, or maybe it was Braveheart.
Braveheart sounds
I
more
think it was
along those
Braveheart.
lines.
Because it was before he sacked York.
Oh yeah, and then fucking what's his fruity fucking name?
Uh-huh.
Though? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
And then he was like, and then he had that guy's, Philip is my royal counsel.
Mm,
And he's like,
yeah,
oh,
fruitcake.
so why don't you tell me your opinion on the matters concerning this? And he throws him out the window. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I gotta watch Braveheart. You know what? That's what I'm gonna watch.
He's like,
Right?
who do
Yeah.
I send? My son is too gentle. And he sends the woman. What does the woman do? Bangs.
Yeah, fucks
That-
William Wallace.
I tell you what, that is some diplomacy in action.
Yeah, old Billy Wallace at it again.
Yup. She's a good-looking woman too.
Yeah.
Man,
Hell
so
yeah.
Sophie Marceau, right?
Yep.
Oof. Oof.
She's old school. That's 90s. That's a 90s bed.
Oof. Gina Gershon too. Oof. Damn.
God.
Them lips though. Anyway,
Take
she's,
you that.
she's still got lips, by the way. Anyway.
Anyway,
I want to be in the 1990s. I would have died and gone to heaven if I was in a Gina Gershon and Fran Drescher sandwich. No,
yeah, that voice I could ignore. I would ignore the voice for a little
that
bit.
was put on. That was put on.
Oh,
like-
she doesn't really talk like this.
No, see that's the thing. Like, why when I used to get off of work and come home, and my mom would watch that show, right? So by default, I would watch that show. And there was an episode where she had her twin sister show up. And her twin sister knew that Fran liked the guy she worked for, right? And the twin sister was always the kind of person who always kept taking from her sister. So she tried to seduce Fran's boss. I forgot his name.
I want to say Max so bad, but I don't think it's that.
It's well, either way.
Whatever.
The point is she tried to seduce him, and in this scene, the lights are really dark, and she walks in a cocktail dress with her hair down, flat and straight, and she actually talks in her real voice, and it's really sexy.
I'm gonna go find that on YouTube and mute for 5 minutes. Carry on.
Well, I can do you one, I can do you one better. She played a hooker in Dr. Detroit
Dr. Detroit.
with Dan Aykroyd. She was even younger and even hotter, and she had her natural voice in that too. Ooh, ooh, man! I tell you what. I tell you what. Anyway, last story of the day from me. Surprised? The lapdog returns. Yep. Everybody wondering where this long-faced fuck used to be, or where he's been. There he is. Tensions between world leaders remained heightened Friday. This is pretty good, actually. During talks with G20 nations in Bali, Indonesia, as top economies look to address the biggest problems facing the globe. Divisions between Western nations and the increasingly unified China-Russia front highlighted stark divisions and made effective diplomacy nil when it came to issues surrounding the war in Ukraine. Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lapdog, his name is Sergei Lavrov, just in case if you're wondering, walked out of the proceedings twice, reports said Friday. First, when his German counterpart, Annalena Baerbock, began to speak, and again when Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba appeared on video. Lavrov said that the global food crisis, a major issue slated for the November summit, and a result of Russia's naval blockade in the Black Sea, was not the fault of Moscow. If the West doesn't want talks to take place but wishes for Ukraine to defeat Russia on the battlefield because both views have been expressed, then perhaps there's nothing to talk about with the West, he says, according to a report by The Guardian. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his Russian counterpart reportedly ignored each other outside of the proceedings, which is the first time Lavrov has met with Western leaders since Russia's invasion began in February. You know, it was not us who abandoned all contacts, Lavrov told reporters. It was the U.S. And we're not running after anybody suggesting meetings. If they don't want to talk, that's their choice. Blinken reportedly directed pointed comments at Moscow during a closed-door meeting that Lavrov was not even present for, accusing it of blocking millions of tons of grain and exacerbating a global food shortage. Lavrov's sit-in apparently did not have a rebuttal to Blinken's comments and said that she did not have prepared remarks, according to one anonymous diplomat who had attended the meeting. This week's talks were intended to lay the groundwork for a summit set to be hosted by Indonesia in November, but the rocky diplomatic relations have set an uncertain tone for the upcoming conference. The world has yet to recover from the pandemic, but we're already confronted with another crisis, the war in Ukraine. This came from Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi. The ripple effects are already being felt globally on food and energy and just physical space. However, officials appeared to make a point to show their disinterest in working with Russia so long as the country continues its war in Ukraine, and said that there would be no joint communique as in previous years. Western officials apparently suggested that they were focused on addressing food and energy shortages that had become a global problem following Moscow's invasion, and said that they would work to establish bloc agreements to counter the growing global crises. However, the tone of the talks were of little surprise following the stops made by Russian nations and officials from Russia and China prior to the G20 meeting in Bali. Lavrov, along with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, reportedly stopped in several Asian capitals to rally support for their position and to bolster their shared ties. Blinken, along with his German, French, and British counterparts, have been meeting for months and attended NATO and G7 conferences over the last week. The Indonesian host attempted to rein in the hostilities by reminding all attendees that the world is facing monumental crises and that they will have devastating effects if they're not remedied. Now, could you imagine being in that room and Indonesia is like, wait, calm down. We need to solve these problems. And Russia looks over at this guy, and America looks over at this guy, and at the same time, they both go, who the fuck do you think you are to tell us that? That's like, I could just visualize that. Wait, calm down. No. Developing nations in the G20, like Argentina, Brazil, India, and Indonesia, could also face steep consequences if relations between the West remain strained with Russia and China. Honestly, we cannot deny that it has become more difficult for the world to sit together, Marsudi said. The world is watching us, so we cannot fail. Reports surfaced Friday alleging that Western nations refused to attend a group dinner Thursday after learning that Lavrov would be attending. The customary group photo was also abandoned in a boycott allegedly led by Blinken and the members of the G7. Lavrov reportedly turned snappish when asked about the omitted group photo shoot and told reporters, "I didn't invite anyone to pose for a photo together with me." What an arrogant prick. It's obvious that they used their G20 for goals that weren't envisaged when it was created, he said, as he walked out of the room. What an arrogant, fat-cheeked little prick. Anyway, it has been 3 hours and 34 minutes since this began. Can you believe it? Didn't I warn you that this could have happened tonight? It is now Saturday, July 9th, day 136 in Ukraine. But I don't cover Saturdays on the same show. That's going to start next week's show. So I'm going to instead play this, which some of you probably have been waiting for me to do for an hour and a half now. And I want to thank you all for watching the War Room this week, because it ran way longer than I thought it would. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, maybe check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Because now I have a new interest of creating music videos for channels who have shows like mine, or like Jimmy's, or like Night Strikes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Night Strikes Hit or Miss Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you want a song or video for your show, hit us up. I'm down for it. I'm pretty sure Jimmy is too. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching. Slava Ukraini.
All right, I'm Slava.
And
Shut up,
finally,
infringed.